Chapter 1627. Help. It's so cold. Don't touch me. Higashio Motetsu suddenly sat up on the bed and looked around. He realized that he was dreaming. He took a deep breath and exhaled. Then he got off the bed and walked to the table to pour himself a glass of water. When the cold water flowed down his throat, he calmed himself down and rubbed his eyes. There was a throbbing pain there. In his dream, she encountered a brown bear. She had nowhere to run and was screaming for help. When he was about to save her, the dream changed. She fell into the rain and her body was hot. She hugged her body and said that she was cold over and over again. When he was about to carry her, the dream changed again. She was dragged away by the Moon Tribe soldiers who wanted to kill her. He was in a hurry to rush over and woke up. When he thought of this, he pursed his lips and showed a self-deprecating smile. He was a little disappointed. In the dream he was confused. He didn't think that this was not real. Based on her personality, she was not weak. Her martial arts were not bad, and she had medical skills to protect herself. There shouldn't be any problems. However, he couldn't control his worry. It was not impossible for these accidents to happen. If she got lost and walked into the deep forest, if she caught a cold in the rain and no one took care of her, if she encountered the Sun Tribe and the Moon Tribe and was used as cannon fodder, he needed to calm down. It was going to be a sleepless night. He turned and walked to the windowsill, wanting to get some fresh air. However, his gaze inadvertently fell on a pot of flowers placed by the windowsill. The dark green leaves were trembling in the wind, and there were a few buds on the branches, but they had not bloomed yet. A month ago, she had brought it back from outside. She had said that it was very similar to the roses that Qingyan had told her about. She had even told him that it was called the love flower. When she had said that, she had smiled like a kitten. He only remembered that she smiled like a flower. Her hands were full of mud, but she didn't think it was dirty at all. He didn't pay much attention to what the flowers looked like. Plus, she was usually the one who watered the flowers. This was the first time he was looking at the flowers so carefully. His finger involuntarily touched the leaf, but was pricked. A small bead of blood formed on his finger. He raised his eyebrows and flipped over the leaves. Only then did he realize that the branches were filled with sharp thorns, just like her, a little chilly with thorns. I've already told you beautiful things have thorns. You're just itching to touch them. A familiar grumbling voice sounded in his ears. His eyes lit up and he immediately turned around. However, before his eyebrows were dyed with joy, he saw that there was no one behind him. Disappointment followed closely. He rejoiced for nothing. He chuckled. Higashio Motetsu, oh Higashio Motetsu, when did you become an abandoned woman? After mocking himself, he walked to the wardrobe and was about to take out a cloak, but when he opened it and saw the neatly arranged piles of clothes, his hands fell to his side, and he didn't even have the strength to raise them. He did not have any maidservants by his side and Zimo did not follow him. The only person who could help him tidy up was the little witch. It was as if she had unknowingly intruded into his life, and then unknowingly took root in the soil like a flower. However, he turned a blind eye to her efforts and did not respond. Instead, he had been enjoying everything she did for him with a clear conscience. Higashio Motetsu, you're really a bastard. Due to the continuous rainstorm, the scheduled departure time for the Yu clan was delayed by a few days. Today, Chung Yenluo went to take Chu Qingyan's pulse and was not in the courtyard. Only Ethereal was left to check the herbs. At this moment, the door opened and a cold wind blew in. Ethereal looked up, and then the corners of his eyes twitched because he saw a wandering soul floating into his room. You, young Master Dongting? Ethereal thought that he had seen a ghost in broad daylight, but when he took a closer look, he could not help but widen his eyes. Higashio Motetsu's face was pale, his eyes were swollen, and his spirit was low. If it were not for the fact that he was still breathing, he would really be mistaken for a ghost. It's me, Higashio Motetsu said faintly. Ethereal patted his chest and took a deep breath. Young Master Dongting, I haven't seen you for a few days. How did you end up like this? He did not look like a human or a ghost. It was as if he had been ravaged. However, this person was so strong. Other than his master and the little princess Consort, who would dare to torture him like this? Higashio Motetsu sighed faintly. I don't know. I can't sleep or eat recently. Can you take a look at me and see if I'm sick? Upon hearing this, Ethereal immediately stepped back and gave up the chair behind him. Sit down quickly. I'll take your pulse and see what's going on. Higashio Motetsu sat down obediently and stretched out his wrist, obediently waiting for his diagnosis. Looking at his series of movements, his eyes were empty and lifeless, as if everything was done unconsciously. Kongling was surprised. It seemed that this person was seriously ill. The elegant noble young master had turned into a walking corpse in just a short while. Ethereal did not dare to delay. He immediately placed his hand on his pulse and focused on feeling it. However, after half a day, he inexplicably looked at the person in front of him. This person's health was extremely good. Could it be that he had misdiagnosed? Young Master Dongting, stick out your tongue for me to see. The person in front of him was very cooperative. He pulled his eyelids and checked. In the end, it was confirmed that he was not sick. But looking at his appearance, Ethereal thought for a moment and said, "Tell me about your situation. I'll treat the illness. When I sleep, I often have dreams. What do you dream of?" Higashio Motetsu was slightly taken aback. He truthfully said, "There are many dreams. Sometimes I dream of someone asking for help. Sometimes I dream of someone being sick. Sometimes I dream of someone being surrounded by fire. I can't sleep well. Every time, I wake up with a start." "Then what else?" Ethereal continued to ask. "I have no appetite. I can't eat anything. I can't concentrate on anything. I'll be in a daze all the time. I have no interest in doing anything." He even found the delicacies tasteless. At this point, Higashio Motetsu looked at Ethereal with a faint gaze. "I've lived for so long, but I've never felt like this. Ethereal, tell me honestly, do I have some kind of terminal illness?" After hearing about his illness, Ethereal had a vague guess in his heart. "Don't worry first. Let me ask you. Don't hide it from me. Is the person in the abyss of suffering in your recurring dreams Miss Tao?" Higashio Motetsu, who had seen through life and death from the moment he entered, finally had a hint of change in his eyes. "How did you know? Do medical students like you have the ability to pry into people's dreams?" "Young Master Dongting, you must be joking." Ethereal shook his head. "Then my illness. I already have an idea." "What?" "According to my observation and your description, young Master Dongting, you are suffering from lovesickness." Higashio Motetsu was struck by a bolt from the blue. He was completely confused. What the hell? Lovesickness. Chapter 1628. Lovesickness? What the hell was that? He was a famous flirtatious young master in the pugilistic world. How could he have contracted such an illness? Higashio Motetsu looked at Ethereal with an unfriendly gaze and asked suspiciously, "Ethereal, are you a quack?" Ethereal rolled his eyes. "If I was a quack, would you come to me?" It was not like he had never encountered patients who doubted his medical skills. He did not feel angry at all. Instead, he patiently guided him. "Young Master Dongting, calm down. If you don't believe me, then I'll ask you a few questions. Think carefully and recall before you answer me." Asking a few questions would not hurt him. Higashio Motetsu raised his chin. "I'll listen to your questions for now." Ethereal could not help but shake his head in his heart at his tone of bestowment. However, he had seen patients no matter how big of a deal they were. They were nothing. The first question was, "Are all your dreams related to Miss Tao?" Higashio Motetsu did not want to answer this question. But when he met Ethereal's gaze and remembered that he was here to seek medical treatment, he could not help but admit it with a straight face. "Yes." "Even if it's not in your dreams, do you often think about things related to Miss Tao?" "Yes." After answering the first question, he was no longer so awkward and answered all the questions. "Have you been eating the same food as before?" "Yes." "Do you often feel empty in your heart, as if you have lost something?" "Yes." After asking a few questions in succession, just as Higashio Motetsu was about to lose his patience, Ethereal stopped asking and muttered to himself, "Is there a result? What exactly is wrong with me?" Ethereal looked up at him deeply. I'm even more certain that you are lovesickness. After talking for so long, it was still the same conclusion. Higashio Motetsu had the urge to flip the table. He looked at Ethereal sinisterly with a faint smile on his lips. Coupled with his sickly pale appearance, it was very strange and made one's hair stand on end. Although Ethereal had not spent much time with Higashio Motetsu, he had heard of his name, Flawless White Jade, but it was more appropriate to call him the Smiling Fox. Once he showed this smile, it meant that someone was going to be in trouble. Kongling had been through a lot. He had dealt with a few of these troublesome and frightening patients before, so he calmly stroked his chin and spoke with fervor and assurance. Don't worry, listen to my reasons. Higashio Motetsu. Your illness only started after Miss Tao left. You don't have to answer, just know it in your heart. At that time it was raining heavily when Miss Tao left, and she was all alone, so you've had dreams of her falling ill or encountering bad people. The way you eat is different from usual. You have no appetite. I don't think it's because the food is not delicious, but because the person who was eating with you is not around. You feel uncomfortable and tasteless. You are often in a daze and can't concentrate because you have worries in your heart. It makes you uneasy and unable to feel at ease. At this point, Ethereal made a conclusion. Young Master Dongting, you are sick from longing and worry. Apart from that, your body is very healthy. The injuries you suffered a few years ago have also recovered well, so there is no doubt that you are lovesickness. After hearing Ethereal's words this time, Higashio Motetsu's heart did not surge with anger. Instead, he was confused. He was shaken by Ethereal's words. But if he admitted that he was lovesickness, wouldn't that be admitting that he was impossible? He was the one who made her sad and drove her away in anger. In retrospect, if he really did have feelings for her, wouldn't that be slapping himself in the face? He had been proud and conceited all his life. How could he do such a foolish thing? He was known as the romantic young master. How could he not understand the world of love? It was impossible that she did not know his feelings. Empty Spirit had said so much. It must have been all nonsense. Ethereal saw the constant changes of emotions on his face, and did not know what he was thinking. But as a doctor and a friend, he felt that there were some things that he still had to say. I can't do anything about your illness, because the heart of the heart needs to be cured by the heart. But as someone who has experienced it, I have a few words of advice for you. The onlooker sees more clearly than the person involved. Sometimes, you think that you have no feelings for someone, but in fact, you may have already taken it to heart. Don't wait until you miss it and regret it. The furthest distance in time was not only the distance between life and death, but also when you were standing in front of me. I didn't know that I loved you. Only when you turned around and left, would I suddenly wake up. Ethereal patted his shoulder and let out a long sigh. Miss Tao's feelings for you are so deep. As long as you go find her, you will definitely find her and bring her back. You quack. Higashio Motetsu looked at him faintly. Ethereal did not know if he had listened after saying so much, but in any case, he had already done his part. He shrugged and watched his departing figure. He pretended to say unintentionally, Poor Miss Tao, I don't know how a person can survive in these stormy days. It's best that she doesn't encounter any danger. As expected, when he saw the handsome figure slightly stiffen, Ethereal turned around in satisfaction, and continued to examine the medicinal herbs. Higashio Motetsu stood in the courtyard with a gloomy expression. It was rare for him to take the initiative to seek medical treatment, but he actually received this kind of result. It was really funny. He boasted that he was a romantic, a wanderer of the Jianghu, so how could he get this kind of illness? What a joke. After standing for a long time, his anger had mostly dissipated. Lunch was also served. He sat down with a serious expression, holding his chopsticks and staring at the dishes on the table. The dishes looked, smelled, and were all delicious. It could be seen that the kitchen had put in a lot of effort. He told himself that he couldn't eat because Tao Tao wasn't around, and he would eat right now to prove it to him. He snorted coldly and unhurriedly reached out his chopsticks. However, after a paw sound, there was only a pair of chopsticks and untouched food left on the table. If he said that he had continuous dreams because he was worried about Tao Tao, then he would have a good nap at noon. At worst, he would not sleep at night. He did not believe in this evil. However, when he was lying on a rocking chair in the corridor with tea, snacks, and fruits beside him, he should have been very relaxed. However, Cao Cao's figure kept flashing in front of his eyes. Half an hour had passed. 2 hours passed. The sky darkened. He could not stand it anymore. He could not sleep at all. He pulled the fan off his face and kicked over the table and chair. It was difficult to get rid of his anger, but his heart was empty. The entire courtyard was really very quiet, making him feel very uncomfortable. He could not help but miss the noisy past. Cao Cao, this stinky girl. She had been gone for so long and still had not returned. Did she not know that he was sick? This heartless girl. He usually gave her good food and drinks and gave her all the fun things. Now, because of a disagreement, she was unhappy and ran away. Couldn't they talk nicely? Could it be that he would bully her? This young master was so angry. In the evening, Ethereal's door was pushed open again. The night wind was very strong, and someone floated in. After the first time, Ethereal was much calmer. However, this person's complexion was worse than in the morning. Ethereal, I'm afraid that I really miss you. Chapter 1629. After Higashio Motetsu left, Chung Yenluo returned and asked in confusion, I saw young Master Dongting on the way here. What happened to him? He seems to have suffered a great blow. Ethereal smiled. It's nothing. He's sick. You didn't prescribe him any medicine? He found the medicine himself and was cured. Lovesickness was the reason why one would not be lovesick in one's life. Higashio Motetsu returned from Ethereal's place. He smiled bitterly when he learned that there was really no way for him to go to the Moon Clan this time. He had to go and get his medicine back. He was a man of action. Once he decided to do something, he would do it immediately. Just like now, he was already standing in front of Chu Qingyan. She knew that Dongting had gone to look for Ethereal twice, but she didn't know the specific reason. She saw that his face was pale and couldn't help but worry. Why do you look so pale? Did you catch a cold and fall ill? Higashio Motetsu smiled at her, and the gloominess in his eyes faded. I'm fine. Don't worry. She was relieved to see that he was in good spirits. She had been paying attention to his expression, and was surprised to see the bag on his shoulder. Are you leaving? Higashio Motetsu nodded. He placed the bag on the table and sat down leisurely. I'm here to say goodbye. I won't be able to accompany you to the Moon Clan this time. Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes when she heard this. She suddenly understood and was delighted. Are you going to look for Cao Cao? He couldn't help but touch his face when he heard this. He chuckled and asked in confusion, Am I that obvious? Although he didn't answer directly, there was no doubt that he had admitted it. Chu Qingyan smiled proudly. That's because I'm smart. I know that you've been acting strangely these past few days and haven't stepped out of the house. It must have something to do with Cao Cao leaving. You said that you would go to the Moon Clan together, but now you're not going. Instead, you're leaving. I can't think of a better reason than to look for Cao Cao. Does your Xiao know that you're so smart? Higashio Motetsu rolled his eyes at her. Chu Qingyan laughed. We both know that we're smart. She had never seen such a thick-skinned person. Dongting, you can face your true feelings and know who you care about. I'm happy for you. I'm so happy for you. And Cao Cao, has waited so long for you. She finally met you. Chu Qingyan was rather emotional. She had known Dongting for several years. From Sichuan to the capital, to Jiangnan, and then here, they had bumped along the way. There had been conflicts and misunderstandings, as well as unforgettable memories. Although this person looked rather unreliable on the surface, he had always been the one to step forward and save her when she was in danger. 3 years ago he had almost lost his life. She was very grateful that Cao Cao had saved his life, so she owed him less. Now that she had found happiness, while he had always been alone, her heart ached for him. She felt very sorry for him. Why does it sound like I'm an outsider from your tone? You've only known Cao Cao for a few years, but you're already comparable to our life and death friendship. He knew what she meant, but he was too embarrassed to admit his feelings for Cao Cao. After all, he had said in front of her that he couldn't give Cao Cao happiness. If he went back on his words, it would be like slapping him in the face. Thus he began to jest. Seeing him act shamelessly, Chu Qingyan glared at him. I don't know why Tao Tao was so blind to fall in love with you. Look at Tao Tao. She has the looks and medical skills. What about you? You're just a bag of skin. What's the use of that? Wow, she was making fun of him. If Tao Tao was here in the future, wouldn't he be the one with the least status? However, he couldn't afford to offend a pregnant woman. He couldn't afford to offend Xiaosu's woman. Higashio Motetsu sighed and didn't argue with her. Since they were about to part, the two of them started to talk. I realize that it's been a long time since we've sat down and had a good chat. I really missed the time in Jiangnan. She couldn't help but sigh. There's no helping it. You've been plagued with misfortune and haven't had a peaceful life. Even if you've settled down these past few years, you've been busy giving birth to children, getting married, raising children, and now you're busy giving birth to children. Sigh, seeing how busy you are, I don't want to disturb you. Besides, that person in your family is still eyeing you covetously. I'm afraid that he'll destroy the Moon Palace if he's unhappy. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to afford it. How could her big ice cube be so bad? However, he was indeed busy. She was busy, and so was he. Later on, when she saw Tao Tao chasing after him, she took a break from her busy schedule and watched with amusement. He put his hands behind his head and leaned back in his chair. Looking at the drizzling courtyard, he smiled softly, his eyes filled with reminiscence. I still remember the first time I saw you. You were so short that you didn't even reach my chest. The second time you played tricks on me. At that time, you guarded against me like I was a thief. It's funny when I think about it. Isn't it because you're a gentleman on the beam? I'm lucky that I didn't have a heart attack because of you. She felt indignant for herself. The two of them talked about looking for medicine for Xiaosu, visiting the Three Kingdoms, business in Jiangnan, and the civil strife in Sichuan. As they talked, there were more things to talk about. However, the sun would set sooner or later. Time would come to an end. He stopped talking, put down his teacup, and stood up. It's getting late. I should be on my way. Otherwise, it'll be dark soon. Chu Qingyan looked up at the sky. As expected, it was getting late. She looked at her good friend in front of her, and felt a little reluctant to part. Why don't you have dinner before you leave? No. He shook his head. Don't be an eyesore in front of me. Go. Although she was reluctant, his happiness with Tao Tao was more important. She couldn't help but wave at him in disdain, as if she couldn't wait for him to disappear. She always said one thing and meant another. Higashio Motetsu laughed in his heart. However, after Chu Qingyan finished speaking, he didn't leave. Instead, he walked in front of her, his eyes full of smiles. Before you leave, you're not going to give me a hug? Are you going to send me off? Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes at him. Why was this person so sentimental? Why was he so sentimental? However, she still reached out and hugged him in disdain. No one knew that when he hugged the girl he had cared about for 8 years, his eyes instantly turned red. I'm leaving. I don't know when we'll meet again. You have to take care of yourself. Qingyan, I liked you. I liked you very, very much. But this time, I'm going to let it go. Seeing you happy, I think it's enough. I'm afraid I won't be able to accompany you in the future. Now, I'm going to catch that little witch who stole my heart. This time, I'm saying goodbye to my past self for 8 years. I'm also putting an end to this relationship. From now on, I'll completely let go. This way, I can truly open up a place in my heart and invite Tao Tao to live with me. He gently hugged her and then stepped back. He raised his hand and patted her head. With a relieved smile, he grabbed his bag and turned to leave in large strides. Chu Qingyan looked at the person who casually waved his hand and left. She laughed until tears came out. Daunting, I understand your feelings. I'm sorry I can't respond. But I know that from now on, we'll still be good friends. I wish you happiness. Chapter 1630. Chu Qingyan watched as the figure left, and did not notice that there was another person beside her. You can't bear to part with him? A voice rang out beside her ear, and she could not tell the emotions in it. However, after being together for so many years, She could decipher the meaning behind his words. If you can't bear to part with that brat, I'll get someone to beat him up. If you can't bear to part with that brat, I'll still go and beat him up. If you deny it, I'll reluctantly believe you and consider not beating him up. Chu Qingyan turned around and hugged his arm, smiling fawningly. I'm not reluctant to part with him. When did you come? If it were any other time he would have hugged her back, but he did not. She had a bad feeling about it. When you were talking about the beautiful past, Xiao Su said mildly. Chu Qingyan coughed a few times, feeling a little guilty. Although she was very open and aboveboard, she could not help but shiver when she heard Big Ice Block's tone. Big Ice Block's cold aura was really strong. She laughed and said, Don't think too much. We're just talking about the past and the present. Xiao Su looked at her coldly. He even hugged you. That was the truth. He even caught her in the act. If it was in the modern world, it would not be a big deal at all. It was just a polite greeting. However, Big Ice Block was so easily jealous that he might not be able to accept it. Wait a minute. She seemed to have thought of something and instantly narrowed her eyes to look at him suspiciously. Weren't you here just now? If he was unhappy, he could have just shown himself. Why did he wait until the end to denounce her? That was not his character. In front of outsiders, I naturally have to give you face. Those words were so dignified. Xiao Su snorted coldly in his heart. Only an idiot would tell her that he could clearly see that Higashio Motetsu was here to say goodbye to her. Moreover, it was obvious that this person had already let go. Why should he interrupt him? After so many years, it was not like he could not see Higashio Motetsu's feelings for her. The little fellow was outstanding and kind, so it was normal for someone to like her. However, the little fellow was already his, and others could only watch. He was not a petty person, so how could he be so calculative about such a request? He could not wait for this person to stop thinking about the little fellow. Besides, this person still had a long way to go to get the beauty, so why should he be so calculative with him? However, after he was ruthless last time, the little fellow was not willing to let him get close to her for the past few days. This made him quite troubled, so he was prepared to make a fuss. Chu Qingyan naturally did not know what this black-bellied Big Ice Block was thinking. When she heard his words, she was somewhat moved. She rubbed against his chest. Big Ice Block, you are so good. I really did not choose the wrong person. Dongting only came to say goodbye to me. Perhaps the next time we meet, we will be able to drink his and Tao Tao's wedding wine. She had personally witnessed Tao Tao and him holding each other. If the two of them were finally married, then she could be considered half a matchmaker. As for Higashio Motetsu, putting everything else aside, he quite admired him. He did not adhere to the rules, was loyal and smart. If not for the fact that this person did not like to be restrained, he would have recommended him to the third prince. With such a person, the imperial court would be filled with vitality. Big Ice Block, why are you so cold? She was somewhat dissatisfied with his cold appearance. Xiao Su had been waiting for her to ask this question. We have not settled the account just now. Hearing this, she laughed and stepped back, planning to slip away. However, before she could go far, she was picked up by the waist. Big Ice Block, where are you taking me? Sleep with me for a while. I'm hungry, I want to eat. Who was it that ate 3 plates of glutinous rice cakes just now? Cough cough, I'll stay with you, I'll stay with you. It was not until she lay down on the bed that she realized that the Big Ice Block really wanted her to sleep with him. She saw the dark circles under his eyes and knew that he had been busy with work these past 2 days, and had not had a good rest. She could not help but feel a bit of heartache. She raised her hand to caress his face. From his eyebrows to his eyelashes, the corners of his eyes, nose and mouth, these 2 words flashed through her mind. Handsome and elegant, like a cool autumn moon. It was said that no matter how beautiful something was, there would be a time when one would be tired of looking at it. However, she could not get enough of her Big Ice Block. She nestled in his arms, found a comfortable position, and closed her eyes. It was not until the sound of shallow breathing that the pair of dark eyes that should have been closed opened at this moment. He lowered his head to look at the person sleeping soundly in his arms and slightly curved his lips. Compared to many people in this world who could not obtain love, he thought that he was very lucky. He had obtained the heart of one person, and they would never leave each other. Pulling up the blanket on her body, Xiao Su kissed her eyes. Then he pressed his forehead against hers and closed his eyes. Higashio Motetsu did not know who was speaking ill of him behind his back. Walking on the street, he sneezed a few times. But it was strange. It had been raining so heavily these past few days, but as soon as he stepped out of the Xiao manor, the rain stopped. Could it be that the heavens wanted to hinder his footsteps so that he could make a decision, and the sky would clear after the rain? The dark clouds scattered and the sun shone down. The sky was clear, and if it was not for the water droplets on the flowers and leaves and the puddles on the ground, one would not be able to tell that it was raining heavily an hour ago. Higashio Motetsu walked to a roadside stall and sat down. He asked for a bowl of wontons. Soon, the hot wontons were served. There were pieces of chopped green onions floating on top. Although it could not be compared to the food in the manor, after letting go of his depression, he felt as if his entire person was suddenly enlightened. It was like the world. The haze had dispersed and the sky was clear. His long-lost appetite came back. Although he ate quickly, his movements were elegant. It made people think that he was eating a delicacy in the world. "Boss, the bill." He stood up and put down a piece of silver. Without giving the change, he picked up the bag and headed in the direction that Qingyan had given him. After eating, he would have the strength to catch people. "Little witch, just you wait. When I catch you, I will teach you a good lesson. Let's see if you dare to run away from home again." The purple figure slowly blended into the crowd and soon disappeared. However, the person that Higashio Motetsu was thinking about appeared in another town at this time. In those days, she wandered aimlessly in the heavy rain. When she finally woke up, she found that she had already left the city. She could not go back to the Xiao manor. However, she did not bring anything with her. Survival was a problem. People who came from the Devil's Valley did not have good or evil principles, because no one taught them how to behave. However, Tao Tao had been with Dongting for a long time. She had also been subtly influenced by Chu Qingyan and the others. She disdained doing things like stealing and swindling. Therefore, in order to be self-sufficient, she planned to use her medical skills to earn some money. Therefore, when Higashio Motetsu arrived at this town, she had already taken the medical fees and was heading to the next place. Sometimes it was like this. When you don't want to cherish it, fate seems to be endless. However, when you wake up, it will always pass by. It could be seen that Higashio Motetsu's road to chasing his wife was long and arduous. Chapter 1631. As soon as the weather cleared up, Xiao Su and the others set off. Compared to the gloomy weather of the past few days, these few days could be said to be sunny, making people feel comfortable. After a long journey, they stopped by the roadside to rest and make lunch. Because they took a shortcut to the Yu clan's capital and didn't go through the town, they took mountain roads. At this time, there were mountains in front of them. Wild geese flew low in flocks, and from time to time, they could hear the echoes of birds chirping. The retired emperor looked at his second grandson who was feeding the horse not far away and muttered to himself, "Why is this person like the weather in June, changing so easily?" "Imperial grandfather, what are you talking about?" Chu Qingyan sat beside him and heard his muttering, but she didn't hear it clearly. Seeing that she was his granddaughter-in-law and not an outsider, the retired emperor told her what he had observed for the past 2 days. "Didn't the incident with Gong Sun Shui happen some time ago? I saw that his mood was not right. I tried to persuade him several times, but he said he was fine. But when there was no one around, he was always in a daze. Now that he seems to be fine, I feel uneasy. Could it be that he was shocked and became stupid?" Chu Qingyan looked at Xiao Yao who was playing with the horse and couldn't help but laugh. It seemed that Imperial Grandfather didn't know the inside story, so she told him about the fight between Big Ice Cube and Xiao Yao. Although Big Ice Cube crushed Xiao Yao in many aspects, she had to save some face for her second brother. She didn't tell him the process, but directly told him the result. She thought that the retired emperor would feel sorry for Xiao Yao, but the result was, why didn't eldest brother beat him more? I see that he is still alive and kicking now. It must be because eldest brother didn't beat him enough. This stinking brat actually wants to play mind games with me. He's so stubborn. How could he possibly hide it from my eyes? He's even trying to deceive himself by saying that he doesn't have any feelings for me. This damn brat. The retired emperor glared at the person not far away and said angrily. Xiao suddenly shivered. However, at this time, the retired emperor's expression changed. He sighed and said, although this brat is enlightened, he is so stupid. How can he get a wife? Granddaughter-in-law, you and boss have to help him. Tu Qingyan hurriedly agreed. Imperial grandfather, don't worry. Second brother is very smart. He will definitely marry his wife. Big Ice Cube and I will do our best to help him. Only then did the retired emperor leave with peace of mind. You've been deceived by Imperial grandfather. She turned around and saw Big Ice Cube looking at her with a smile. What do you mean? She was confused. Imperial grandfather promised Imperial grandmother that he would take good care of us grandsons and watch us settle down. Now he doesn't have to worry about me and old third anymore, but old second's temper is giving him a headache, so he's pushing the responsibility to you now. She had forgotten that Imperial grandfather was best at acting, and he was even good at acting. Xiao Su pinched her face and chuckled. Forget it. Fortune favors fools. Just do your filial piety. She snorted, then thought of something. She looked at him with sparkling eyes. I heard that Imperial grandmother wasn't born in an aristocratic family. She was just a commoner girl that Imperial grandfather met when he was traveling. The two of them fell in love at first sight. Imperial grandfather ignored the objections of the officials and married her into the palace. Then he doted on her. Is this true? Xiao Su saw the gossipy look in her eyes and couldn't help but poke her nose in amusement. He nodded non-committally. Something like that. Then wasn't this the ancient version of the story of the prince and Cinderella? She immediately tugged at his arm. Hurry and tell me the story of Imperial grandfather and Imperial grandmother. No one could stop the little fellow when she was in the mood. Xiao Su helplessly held her shoulder and told her about the events of the past. A cool breeze blew gently. A man and a woman stood side by side. Their eyes were gentle as they whispered to each other. It was as if they were weaving the warmest scenery in this winter. Xiao Yao's gaze moved away from his imperial brother and sister-in-law. The cool breeze blew away the envy in his eyes. Because he was in the imperial family, he had seen the jealousy between the imperial concubines. He had also seen his imperial mother waiting for news that his imperial father was resting in another palace. He didn't know when it started, but he felt that if he couldn't give her a lifetime promise, then he shouldn't let her down. He was afraid of the marriage contract. So he would rather be alone, without any attachments. Later, when he saw his imperial brother and sister-in-law go through hardships and stay together no matter how difficult it was, he gradually believed that there was still true love in this world. Now he also wanted to try and learn to love someone. A small soft bag ran over and hugged his leg. Second Emperor Su, are you unhappy again? Xiao Yao didn't need to guess to know who it was. He lowered his head and looked at Xiao and Kong, who was blinking his big eyes and acting cute. He shook his head and laughed. Second uncle isn't unhappy. He just figured out some things. I see. Xiao and Kong nodded. He didn't quite understand. Xiao Yao squatted down and looked at the child, who was less than his knees. He raised his hand and pinched his pink cheeks. He asked angrily, tell me, what do you want me to catch for you this time? Xiao and Kang's eyes widened. Second uncle, are you a roundworm in my stomach? Otherwise, how do you know what I'm thinking? Xiao Yao rolled his eyes. Last time it was because he didn't pay attention to his path. How could he fall in the same place twice this time? It was just that he really liked this nephew of his. He was lively and cute, sensible and clever, and looked very much like a miniature version of his imperial brother. Sometimes he wanted to tease him and satisfy his pranks on his imperial brother. However, every time he met this pair of beautiful, watery eyes, he couldn't help but want to give him all the good things. Because second uncle, I'm the smartest person in the world. He didn't feel embarrassed at all to flatter himself. However, he didn't receive Xiao and Kang's admiring gaze. Instead, Xiao and Kang looked at him worriedly. Second Emperor, what should we do? You haven't married yet, and you're already bald. What if no girl wants to marry you in the future? Why don't you go see Ethereal, and see if it can be cured? Uft. Chu Qingyan just happened to walk over. When she heard her son's witty words, she couldn't help but burst out laughing. This was a classic case of shooting oneself in the foot. Xiao Yao's mouth twitched. He took a deep breath and tried to calm himself down. He explained, "Second uncle said that you're the best in the world, not bald. You haven't started studying yet. Second uncle doesn't blame you." Who knew that as soon as he finished speaking, Xiao and Kong became even more worried. "Second emperor, great-grandfather said that you're the stupidest person in the world, but you say that you're the smartest person in the world. Do you have a narcissistic disease?" Afraid that he wouldn't understand, Xiao and Kong tugged at his mother's clothes and said anxiously, "Mother, quickly tell Second Emperor what a narcissistic disease is." Chu Qingyan held her waist and laughed so hard that she almost couldn't breathe. Meanwhile, Xiao Yao was already running away in tears. Was he really that stupid? Even children bullied him. Chapter 1632. Perhaps the weather was on their side, but for the rest of the journey, the weather was very clear, and they didn't encounter any problems. Thus, after traveling for more than half a month, they finally arrived at the city closest to the Moon Clan's capital, Bright Jade City, before nightfall. There were already people waiting at the city gates. Chu Qingyan lifted the curtain, and immediately saw her good friend standing at the city gates. It was mainly because that person was standing too conspicuously. "Sima, why are you here?" Sima Jun was dressed as a man, standing handsomely under the light of the setting sun. Men and women of all ages couldn't help but steal glances. However, she seemed to be used to this kind of scene. She had already seen the carriage coming from afar, and turned to meet her good friend's gaze. She pursed her lips and smiled, throwing Chu Qingyan a seductive glance. "My wife has traveled thousands of miles to seek shelter with your husband. After receiving your letter, your husband has been waiting for you day and night. Today my wife has finally arrived. Fortunately, my wife and the child in your belly are safe and sound. Your husband can finally rest assured. Come, come, let your husband help you down the carriage. Be careful of the slippery ground." Chu Qingyan's eyes lit up. She liked it. She took the handkerchief from Jasper's hand and wiped the non-existent tears from the corners of her eyes. She said pitifully, "My husband has worked so hard to come here to make a living, but also for my wife and our child. I feel guilty that I can't share your burden." When the men and women saw that such an outstanding couple was husband and wife, they were somewhat envious and jealous. However, more people were touched by the love between the husband and wife. Of course, these people didn't include the ashen-faced Xiao Su and Ji Linyang. They had only looked down on them in the blink of an eye, and they had already cuckolded them. It seemed that they had spoiled them so much that they didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. At this moment on the busy road, the two of them were acting out a tragic love story. "My wife, don't say any more. Your husband is useless." Sima Jun pounded his chest in grief. Ji Linyang's eyebrows twitched. "My husband, don't blame yourself. As long as our family stays together, your wife will be satisfied." Chu Qingyan wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes again. Xiao Su's mouth twitched. The passers-by and spectators also wiped their tears. What a loving family. This was the most touching scene of the year. Xiao Su and Ji Linyang's eyes met. Ji Linyang cupped his hands. "My wife's is a joke today." Xiao Shuyang nodded apologetically. "Same here." With that, the two of them picked up their troublesome daughter-in-law at the same time and turned to leave. However, the two of them were playful. Sima Jun's SSS Chu Qingyan choked on her tears. "Junlang, she's as her husband's is. SS Xiao Su and Ji Linyang immediately quickened their pace. One of them was brought into the carriage, while the other was stuffed into the carriage. Then they quickly headed into the city. The loving scene just now had been forcibly separated. The spectators' imaginations were too great. They imagined the story of two bullies kidnapping a woman. Wait, wasn't Junlang a man? Why would a bully kidnap a man? However, this wasn't important. The spectators wouldn't stop gossiping. They had already left, but the story they left behind was still being talked about enthusiastically. When they arrived at the inn, Chu Qingyan and Sima Jun looked at each other and saw the gloom in each other's eyes. Who asked that person to be so jealous? He was even jealous of a girl. They couldn't help but sympathize with each other. On the way here, they had to give up land and pay compensation before they let them go. It was hard to tell outsiders. Meanwhile, Xiao and Ji Linyang looked at each other and saw the satisfied smile in each other's eyes. Great minds think alike. After a few glances, they became close friends. Because there were many of them on this trip, Ji Linyang booked a courtyard in this inn and walked directly into it. When Chu Qingyan stepped into the courtyard, several snow-white balls pounced on her like round snowballs. Xiao was the first to react. He quickly hugged the little fellow and took a few steps back, avoiding Bai Yutong's enthusiastic wolf claws. Bai Yutong and the others were stunned. Wasn't Master in front of them just now? Where was she? Then they turned around and saw the cold-faced male master and the person in his arms. Oh, it was the master they missed the most. They were so excited that they wanted to pounce on her again. However, they were deterred by the male master's gaze. As the big brother, Bai Yutong still had some eyesight. It noticed that the male master was protecting his master's belly with both hands. Could it be that master was injured? This time they didn't dare to be rash. They walked forward in small steps and circled around their master. They sniffed here and there, and soon confirmed that they were going to have a new little master. The three of them happily circled around on the spot and howled softly. Sima Jun looked at these silly and adorable animals. It was hard to imagine that these were the noble and proud snow wolves that had followed them all the way. Were they sure they weren't the three fools? Chu Qingyan missed the three of them very much. She bent down and stroked their heads. She smiled and said, "Bai Yutong snowflake cake, glutinous rice ball, I miss you guys very much. But you guys were too enthusiastic just now. You have to be more careful in the future because I have a baby in my belly." Bai Yutong and the others howled in unison to show that they understood. Then, the three of them went to greet their little master. Not long later, Chu Qingyan saw her son being carried on Bai Yutong's back. His two little hands were tugging on his furry ears. He laughed happily and even shouted, "Go, go, go, Bai Yutong, run." It turned out that he was treating the snow wolves as horses. Father Chu also hadn't seen the three of them in a long time. Soon, the three of them happily played together. Xiao indicated for Hualing to arrange for people to protect them. Then he entered the hall. At this time, Father Chu was holding his little grandson high up in the air. Bai Yutong and the others were squatting together to discuss how to divide the spoils. Bai Yutong, when Master gives birth to a new little master, Master Kong will be mine. Snowflake cake, I have no objections. Little sister, there are two little masters in Master's belly. One is yours and the other is mine. Glutinous rice ball, deal. All right, from now on, the little masters will be protected by us. Actually, Snowflake cake and glutinous rice ball's feelings were like this. Snowflake cake. Mom, I don't need to fight with Big Brother for the little master anymore. I will also be a wolf with a little master in the future. Glutinous rice ball. Bao Bao will finally have a little master. Both big brothers are too bad, always hogging Master Kong. Little masters, quickly grow up and be born. If someone could understand wolf language, they would be stunned by the domineering words of these three. And if Chu Qingyan and Xiao were here, they would also be shocked by the amount of information revealed in their words. Something seems to have happened in the capital these past 2 days. The entire city is under martial law. I think we should wait for 2 days before going in. We'll act after the storm has passed. Xiao did not have any objections. Water Spirit, is there any news from Pigeon Feather these few days? Because she hadn't been able to find Feng Ling's whereabouts, Shui Ling's mood was very low, but at this moment, she forced herself to calm down and stepped forward to reply. The last time Feng Ling appeared was in the Serene Moon sect half a year ago. After that, I haven't heard any news about him. Xiao Yao had been focused on hurrying along recently, and did not hear that Wind Spirit had anything to do with the US sect. When he heard those 3 words, he could not help but think of that cold person. He did not know how she was now, and whether Wind Spirit's matter had anything to do with her. Xiao nodded. Looking at his capable subordinate's dejected expression, he sighed in his heart. Water Spirit, have a good rest these 2 days. Contact Pigeon Feather and get Hualing to assist by the side. Water Spirit knew that her master was concerned about her, and left after thanking him. The discussion was more or less done. Everyone's faces also showed signs of fatigue, so they all went back to rest. Xiao Yao stood in the courtyard and looked in the direction of the capital city. His eyes were filled with longing. He had finally come to the place closest to her. At the same time, the person he missed was riding a horse towards Bright Moon City. Sect Master, our people found that the person who stole the token is heading in this direction. Qiu Tong rode a horse and followed her all the way, making use of every opportunity to report. At this time, the cold wind was biting cold, causing one's face to hurt, especially when they were riding at such a high speed. Gong Sunshue's expression was very cold, colder than the night. She went out to settle some matters today, and found that the token that could command the 3 armies was missing when she returned. After investigating the truth, it was actually a servant that her good sister, Gong Sun Fei, had placed by her side to steal it while she was not around and moved it overnight. She did not need to say how important that token was. Damn it! Such a mistake actually happened at this time. She could not sit still at all, and brought a few people to chase after them. Qingyu, who was following beside her, looked at the dark road in front of her, and was a little hesitant. Sect Master, could this be a trap? Gong Sunshue's eyes sharpened. How could she not have considered this? This theft was full of loopholes and left so many traces. Wasn't it to bait her? However, they had really calculated correctly. She had no choice but to come. The token is extremely important. No matter what, we have to bring it back. The moment the cold voice fell, everyone immediately responded. Tens of people on horses quickly approached Bright Jade City. In the dark, a black-robed man stood with his hands behind his back. If Chu Qingyan and the others were here, they would definitely recognize this person as the leader of the black-robed men who had led people into the Xiao residence that day. How is the matter? This subordinate just received news that Sect Master Yu has already left the capital city and is now leading people towards Bright Jade City. As expected, she knows it's a trap but still chased after us. Very good, very good. The leader of the black-robed men laughed loudly, extremely happy. However, the subordinate did not leave immediately after reporting. He hesitated for a moment before saying, Sir, our brothers have found traces of the Xiao clan in Bright Jade City. The leader of the black-robed men was stunned and said in disbelief, The Xiao clan is also there? Yes, they just entered the city today. Do you think Sect Master Yu will join forces with them and bite us back? The leader of the black-robed men thought for a moment and waved his hand. That's impossible. The Sun clan and the Moon clan are at odds. Since the Xiao clan is on the Sun clan's side, it is impossible for them to join forces with the Yu sect. So you don't have to worry. But don't clash with the Xiao clan directly. It's best to avoid them for this matter, lest it complicates things. It was obvious that the shock that the Xiao-like cavalry had given him that day still affected him. Chapter 1634. The Yu clan's capital city was heavily guarded. They could only enter and not leave, so they could only stay in the inn for the time being. After staying here for a day, the 2 pregnant women could no longer sit still. Xiaoyang, the baby wants to go out and play. Sima Jun stuck out her belly and said righteously. Ji Linyang looked at his wife who wanted to use the baby as an excuse to sneak out. He couldn't help but find it funny. At this time, Chu Qingyan was also encouraged by Sima. She couldn't help but tug at her big ice block's hand. I want to go out and play. Seeing his wife's sparkling eyes, how could Xiao Su bear to reject her? Thus, the 2 expectant fathers looked at each other and reached a consensus. Young Master Ji, are there any places to visit here? Xiao Su asked Ji Linyang. He had arrived here a long time ago, so he was more familiar with the terrain than Ji Linyang. Sima Jun heard that there was hope, so she grabbed Xiao Yang's arm. Phoenix Food Street, West Lake, Twin Towers. A list of scenic spots popped out of Sima's mouth. Ji Linyang stroked her head and nodded with a smile. He turned to Xiao Su and said, We can walk around Westlake first, then go to Phoenix Food Street for dinner in the evening. What do you think? Sima Jun was speechless. Why did it feel like he was petting a pet? But in order to go out and play, she endured it. Xiao didn't answer. Instead, he lowered his head and asked his wife, "What do you think?" Chu Qingyan felt that it couldn't be any better. She hurriedly nodded. Xiao smiled and looked up at Ji Linyang. "Then it's settled. I'll get someone to arrange a carriage now. You can arrange 2 people to lead the way." The 2 expectant fathers hit it off and went their separate ways. Sima Jun watched her steward leave and sighed softly to Chu Qingyan. "Qingyan, do you know how envious I am of you?" "Envious of what?" Chu Qingyan was peeling peanuts in her hand and didn't understand. "I'm envious of how much your big ice cube dotes on you. No matter what you say, he'll do it. He's not like that housekeeper of mine. No matter what I do, he has to interfere. He doesn't have any personal freedom at all." Sima Jun's tone was full of grievances. Chu Qingyan chuckled. "I think young Master Ji is quite a good person. Who asked you to be so unsettling?" Sima Jun felt a little guilty when he heard this. "How am I not reassuring?" "Oh really? Who was the one who asked for iced sour plum soup a few days ago?" "It was Winter." "Also, who was the one who insisted on playing with a sword last time?" And Chu Qingyan joked about these things until her good friend was speechless. She then stopped smiling and said seriously, "Sima, don't forget that you're pregnant. Before you do something, even if you don't think about yourself, you have to think about the child in your belly. If I were young Master Ji, I wouldn't be able to leave your side at all times. I might even tie you to my belt." Sima Jun touched his face when he heard this. He looked as if he had been enlightened. He muttered, "People say that pregnant women are quite pretentious. I feel that I'm becoming more and more pretentious. This isn't a good sign." Then he couldn't help but look at his belly and mumble to himself, "Could it be that I'm pregnant with the devil's incarnation, so he's encouraging me to be pretentious all the time?" Chu Qingyan couldn't help but laugh when she heard what he said. She thought for a moment and said, "Maybe this child isn't part of your plan, so you're not ready to be a parent yet. But don't worry. With your husband around, you just have to eat and sleep well. You don't have to worry about anything." This was a little like premarital anxiety, and her good friend was pregnant anxiety. Sima Jun agreed. "You're right. Maybe I haven't accepted this identity yet, but I really love our child." She couldn't help but touch her belly and blame herself. "I can't go on like this. I have to treat little Yang better in the future." Chu Qingyan smiled. Her good friend was usually calm and composed, but she didn't expect her pregnancy to stimulate her girlish side. Sima Jun probably didn't realize that every time she showed such a coquettish side, her butler would cherish and pity her. After comforting her good friend, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but want to give herself a thumbs up. All these years she had been either a matchmaker or a peacemaker. If she wasn't matchmaking, she was on her way to being a caring big sister. She had so many responsibilities and was so busy. She had to ask Big Ice Cube to nourish her. "What are you talking about? You look so happy." Xiao and Ji Linyang came back one after the other. At this moment, Xiao walked up to his little wife and touched her face with a faint smile. "Nothing much, just some small talk." "Oh right. Why did you go so quickly? Have you arranged everything?" Chu Qingyan rubbed her head against his palm obediently as she asked, her eyes wide and confused. "Everything is arranged. Let's go. The car is at the door." Xiao took her hand, nodded at Ji Linyang and Ji Linyang, and then walked out of the door. On the other hand, Ji Linyang felt that his wife had been very quiet ever since he came in. It wasn't like her after she got pregnant, so he couldn't help but worry. "Are you not feeling well?" Sima Jun sat quietly and looked at him. She shook her head. "No, the child and I are fine." Ji Linyang was relieved. He thought for a while and asked, "Are you unhappy that I was gone for so long?" Sima Jun couldn't help but look at him more seriously when she saw him talking to her so gently and looking for the reason for everything that happened. It seemed that she hadn't looked at him properly ever since she found out that she was pregnant. His appearance was the kind that could be seen at a glance in a crowd. It was as if no one could cover up his brilliance. Ever since he lost to her in a bet many years ago, He had spent the best years of his life by her side. He had been riding a horse when he was young, and he was still the same even now, although his family wasn't in the imperial court or in the pugilistic world. Which country's king wouldn't treat him as an honored guest when the name of a reclusive family came out? He was the successor of his family. After he had succeeded in his studies, he was supposed to enter the world and do whatever he wanted. However, because of her appearance, his family's plans for him were disrupted. He was willing to follow her, a small underground manor lord, and hide all of his glory. His sword was supposed to be used on the battlefield, sweeping everything before it, not to train her bodyguards. His hand was supposed to be holding a brush, splashing ink on mountains and rivers, pointing at the mountains and rivers, not to record business transactions, nor to fiddle with the abacus, wandering through those boring accounts. At this moment, she felt guilty for no reason, and her eyes turned slightly red. She was in a good mood all of a sudden. Ji Linyang's heart clenched. He didn't know what had happened and immediately wanted to comfort her. Before he could speak, the person in front of him suddenly opened her arms and hugged him. Chapter 1635. Ji Linyang was flattered by his wife's sudden enthusiasm. It was rare for her to be so proactive, but being happy was one thing. Ji Linyang was also worried about his wife's abnormal behavior. "Junyao, what happened to you? Did someone bully you?" But thinking about how it was Chu Qingyan who was with her just now, he couldn't help but feel jealous. There shouldn't be any conflict between them. "No, I just want to hug you." Sima Jun buried her head in his arms, her voice carrying a sense of dependence that she didn't even realize she was relying on him. Ji Linyang was even more flattered, but he felt that it was a little abnormal for his wife to be so emotional for no reason. He stroked her head and said softly, "Okay, I'll be right here. You can hug me for as long as you want. But if there's anything on your mind, remember to tell me. We're husband and wife. We'll share happiness and misfortune together." "I'm fine. I just feel that it's been hard on you these days. You've lost so much weight. If only I could be as sensible as Qingyan." She lifted her head from his arms, her eyes filled with self-blame and guilt. His wife finally saw the good in him and stopped giving him the cold shoulder. Ji Linyang felt that he had finally reached the end of his patience, but he didn't dare to let his guard down. His expression became even gentler. "What nonsense are you saying? It's because people are different that they show their unique side. No matter how good Miss Chu is, she's not you. The only one I care about and like has always been you." Hearing his words, she felt even more guilty. Her fingers instinctively clutched the front of his clothes. She lowered her eyebrows and pursed her lips. Her voice was lonely as she said, "I'm the one who dragged you down. You should have a better future, but because of me, you gave up such a great future." What the hell was going on? Ji Linyang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. But seeing her so disappointed, he felt that if he didn't clarify this matter properly, she would be conflicted for a long time. Although he had already made it clear during the internal strife at the Blue Manor, Miss Chu was right. When his wife was pregnant, she had a very prominent characteristic, and that was that she was emotional and loved to bring up old scores. Fortunately, she was bringing up old scores now to his advantage. But it was also at this time that he realized how much she remembered this matter. He reached out and lifted her chin, making her look at him. The smile on his face disappeared as he said seriously, "Junyao, to me, there's no great future. As long as I'm with you, whether it's a sea of fire or a mountain of blades, it doesn't matter to me. Moreover, how do you know that the path that the clan has arranged for me is the path that I want to take?" Sima Jun couldn't help but reveal a look of joy. His fingers clutched his clothes tightly, wanting to hear him continue. Sensing the change in her emotions, the sternness in Ji Linyang's eyes immediately turned into gentleness. "Junyao, you're the one who's going home for me." This confession was too unexpected and too sweet. Sima Jun felt as though he had been enlightened in the art of sweet talk. No matter what he said, he was always seductive. She couldn't help but curl up the corners of her mouth. She felt shy, but she said proudly, "Since you can't leave me, then I won't pursue what you did this time. There won't be a next time." Ji Linyang couldn't help but laugh when he heard that. He liked how she didn't mean what she said, but for the sake of their future happiness, how could he bear to expose her? Actually, he knew that he was the reason why she was unhappy during this period of time. This child had come too suddenly. One of the reasons was that she wasn't prepared. Another reason was that she didn't want to give birth so early and had been using contraception. He was the one who had secretly done something to give birth to this child. Although she didn't say it out loud, she was unhappy. So in the past 2 months, no matter what tricky things she came up with, he would satisfy her. After all, he was in the wrong. He hugged her inside softly. His tone was gentle and apologetic. Junyao, I know you've been blaming me for this period of time, but I really hope that we can have a child of our own. Sima Jun pursed her lips. This guy finally admitted that he did it on purpose. She had been using contraception every time, so how could she have fallen for it? When I saw how adorable Kong was, I was very envious of Brother Xiao and Miss Chu. The family of 3 was so harmonious and happy, so I often thought about what it would be like if we had a child. If I could give birth to a girl like you, I feel that I would have no regrets in this life. Ji Linyang had always been reserved, and it was rare for him to be so affectionate. At this moment, his expression was moved, and his love for her was obvious in his eyes. Junyao, I hope that you won't let my selfishness affect your feelings for the baby. I hope that you can be like me and look forward to its arrival. So that was what he thought. Sima Jun was stunned. So she had wronged him. And he had also misunderstood him. It seemed that if some things were not made clear today, there might be a misunderstanding between them. She placed her hands on his chest and spread them apart slightly. Although the two of them were a little apart, she was still in his arms. This distance was enough. She looked up into his eyes, her eyes calm and clear. Linyang. She rarely called his name like that. When she was happy, she would call him Little Yang, and when she was unhappy, she would call him by his full name. At this moment, it was obvious that she wanted to talk. He couldn't help but restrain his expression, but his eyes were still gentle. She said seriously, "It's not that I don't like our child. I just feel that you didn't discuss it with me and kept me in the dark. This makes me very unhappy. Also, I really don't plan to have a child so early." Hearing her say that she didn't want to have a child so early, a hint of sadness flashed across Ji Linyang's eyes. Seeing his abandoned expression, Sima Jun's face immediately darkened. She tugged at his clothes. "I'm not done yet. You should at least listen to what I have to say before you feel sad." Ji Linyang looked at her faintly. "Speak, I'm listening." Sima Jun was so angry that she couldn't help but take a deep breath. Then, she said the words that were buried in her heart word by word. "Get rid of all those messy thoughts in your head. The reason why I don't want to have a child so early is because I want to spend more time alone. In the past, we were busy with the lawn manor, and didn't have much time together. Do you understand?" Hearing this, Ji Linyang looked at her in disbelief. The darkness in his eyes was swept away, and those elegant eyes seemed to be stained with starlight. Sima Jun was blinded by his brilliance. She muttered in her heart, "Why is he so handsome for no reason? Also, I'm looking forward to our child. I love it as much as you do. Don't accuse me." She bluffed as she grabbed his clothes and said fiercely. Hearing this dull confession, Ji Linyang's heart was already bursting with joy. He hugged her happily. "Junyao, I'm so happy." Sima Jun snorted softly, but she still hugged him back. The corners of her mouth couldn't help but curl up. Chapter 1636. When Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su walked out of the inn and saw the scene in front of them, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but twitch her eyes. Wasn't it supposed to be a 4-person trip? How did it turn into a group trip? The retired emperor was still able to spar with Father Chu while carrying Xiao and Kong. He dodged nimbly, causing Xiao and Kong to clap his hands and cheer. Cheng Yanluo and Ethereal were leisurely chatting by the side of the carriage. Only Xiao Yao noticed that they had come out. He closed his fan and complained to the two of them. "Why did you take so long to come out? We've been standing in the cold wind for so long." Chu Qingyan pointed at the group and asked the people around her, "What's this?" Xiao Su coughed lightly, then said, "I met Xiao Yao when I was making arrangements." Obviously, Xiao Yao knew that they were going out, so he spread the news. The four-person trip quickly expanded into a group trip. At this time, Xiao and Kong also saw his mother and immediately reached out to her for a hug. Chu Qingyan instantly softened when she saw her son. Forget it, she'll spend time with Big Ice Cube next time. Her son was still more important. She hadn't spent time with her son properly recently. Looking at his wife slowly walking towards the carriage with their son in her arms, Xiaosu suddenly understood the meaning of her resentful gaze just now. He couldn't help but narrow his eyes and faintly look at Xiao Yao. When Xiao Yao met his imperial brother's gaze, he immediately shrunk his neck. How would he know that his imperial brother and imperial sister-in-law were going on a date? Realizing that he had stirred up a hornet's nest, he immediately hid to the side and muttered to himself, "He can't see me, he can't see me." Xiaosu snorted and retracted his gaze. He took his son from his wife's arms and sent him to the carriage. Before boarding the carriage, Chu Qingyan glanced at the inn's entrance and recalled Sima's expression just now. She smiled and said, "Big Ice Cube, let's go first. Just leave a carriage for Sima and the others. I believe they won't come out so soon." Xiaosu nodded and turned to instruct Hualing. Then the group headed towards West Lake. On the carriage, Xiao and Kong was very lively and active, running and jumping. It could be seen that he was used to playing with his imperial grandfather and father. Chu Qingyan felt that although it was a good thing for boys to be lively, they still had to be more mature. "You have to take care of Kong Kong," Chu Qingyan said to Xiaosu. Big Ice Cube had obviously placed all his attention on her in the past few years. It was not good for his son to leave everything to others. Xiaosu did not understand. He's fine. His son was smart, sensible, lively and quick-witted. He was very assured. Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes at him. She was right. She pulled her son to sit beside her and continued. "What I meant was that you should teach him how to write when you're free to train him. I know that you could write down 100 family names from memory when you were 2 years old. Your son now only knows how to climb trees, steal birds' eggs, and tease the people around him." She had received many complaints from the servants, and every time it gave her a headache. If not for the fact that she was pregnant this time, she was afraid that her son would not be able to control his strength and hurt her. That was why imperial grandfather and father took him away to take care of him. Otherwise, she would have caught him and taught him a lesson. Xiao and Kong heard his parents' conversation and pouted unhappily. "They're so bad they even snitched on me." Chu Qingyan was so angry that she laughed. He even played the blame game. "Do you think that you can bully others without your status? Although you're smart, everyone is giving in to you. If you continue like this in the future, Mother won't like you anymore." Upon hearing that Mother didn't like him, Xiao and Kong pursed his lips and said, "It's okay. Mother doesn't like Bao Bao. Bao Bao likes Mother. No matter if Mother likes Bao Bao or not, Bao Bao will always like you." Chu Qingyan instantly felt that she had been teased by her son. She was stunned at first, then hugged her son tightly. Touched, she said, "Good son, Mother likes you too. I'll always like you." Xiao and Kong said happily, "Mother, don't worry. Bao Bao will study hard and work hard to earn money when he grows up. Bao Bao will make Mother happy every day." It was said that a daughter was a small cotton-padded jacket, while a son was also a protective armor. At this moment, Chu Qingyan felt incomparably happy. However, sitting at the side and witnessing this scene, the face of the loving mother and filial son darkened slightly. Did his son eat honey? He actually came to snatch his wife. He should be responsible for his wife's happiness. It seemed that the little fellow was right. He should pay attention to his studies and train his temper, so that he wouldn't always pester his wife. If Xiao and Kong knew what his father was thinking, he would suspect that he was a child picked up from the trash can. The streets of the Yu clan were bustling with people, and it was more lively than the Sun clan. Perhaps it was because the closer it was to the capital, the more stable and prosperous the lives of the commoners were. Chu Qingyan and the rest lifted the curtains of the carriage, admiring the bustling streets and the small items being sold, while chatting and laughing with the people around them. Being in this peaceful atmosphere, it was as if the battles and plots of the past were just a matter of a previous life. On the other side of the road, a group of people wearing veil hats appeared in the crowd. The leader was a woman dressed in white. She had a beautiful figure and an otherworldly temperament. However, the white veil covered her face, making it a pity that they couldn't see her true appearance. Sect Master, we've already found out that the last place those people were seen was by the West Lake. Should we rush over immediately? That's right, this woman was undoubtedly Gong Sun Shui. After hearing Qing Yu's report, she said without hesitation, split into 4 groups and search in all directions. We must find them tonight. Yes. After everyone received the order, they quickly dispersed. Gong Sun Shui let a few people alone, and turned to join the crowd of people coming and going. At the same time, Xiao was riding on a horse with a large group of people following behind him. His eyes constantly fell on the shops on both sides of the road, excitedly studying them. At the corner, Gong Sun Shui turned back as if she sensed something. At the end of the road, there was a tall and strong person, who seemed somewhat familiar. Autumn Maple called out to her at this time, but she didn't have time to look clearly and lowered her head to continue forward. She must be seeing things. Why is he here? He should be in a Japanese town right now. The people around him are so talented. They must be living a happy life and have long forgotten about me. Suddenly, Xiao lost interest in studying. His eyes involuntarily looked at the road in front of him, as if something white flashed past. He rubbed his eyes, but there was nothing around the corner. He sighed self-deprecatingly. Why is the ice beauty here? It must be because he missed her too much that he had an illusion. But it doesn't matter. When they enter the capital, he will go find her. No matter what she thinks, he will tell her his thoughts. Thinking of this, his heart relaxed, and a smile returned to his face. In the dark. They're here? They're here. Good. Let's act according to the original plan. Yes. Chapter 1637. In Chu Qingyan's impression, the West Lake should be like this. The water should be clear and bright, and the mountains should be empty and covered with rain. Even if it wasn't like that, it should be like this. The lotus leaves were green, and the lotus flowers were red. However, when she arrived at the place, she realized that she was thinking too much. The lake was very big, but there were no lotus flowers. There were only boats, and some of the boats were decorated with street lights. Orioles and swallows were yelling from the boats. She didn't need to guess to know what they were doing. When Xiao Su saw the scene on the lake, he frowned slightly. It was obvious that he was dissatisfied and unhappy that his rare outing had been ruined. Chu Qingyan sensed his displeasure and tugged at his sleeve. Since we're all out, let's take a walk. Look, there seems to be someone selling lanterns in front. Let's go take a look. Xiao Su looked in the direction of her finger. Sure enough, there were people selling lanterns. He nodded and took his wife with one hand and carried his son with the other. They avoided the crowd and slowly walked forward. When Cheng Yanluo and Ethereal got off the carriage, they walked away first. The retired emperor and Father Chu also left together. Now only Xiao, Jasper and Huoling were left by their side. Xiao followed behind, waving his fan. What a graceful young master. Along the way, he attracted the gazes of many young girls, who shyly threw flirtatious glances at him. Little Ong Kong was in his father's arms and happened to see this scene. He turned his head and said, "Mother, Ursu is attracting bees and butterflies again." Chu Qingyan didn't know where her son learned this word from, but when she turned around and saw the many girls around Xiao, she gave her son a thumbs up and said, "That's a very apt description." However, Xiao, who was the moon surrounded by the stars, did not like this feeling very much. In the past, when he was alone and carefree, he had been treated like this many times. He quite enjoyed it, but now, there was someone living in his heart. No matter if she was in front of him or not, he would keep his chastity for her. After realizing his thoughts, Xiao suddenly didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He hadn't even chased her yet, and he was already so self-conscious. If news of this spread back to the capital, those friends of his would definitely laugh at him. But let it be a joke. It was better than those single dogs. But for some reason, ever since he came to West Lake, Su Yi's heart had been restless. Other than the time when his mother was critically ill, he had never felt this way again. Ever since Imperial Brother ascended the throne, he brought Imperial Concubine Mother to his residence. With someone taking care of her, there shouldn't be any problems. Then where did this feeling come from today? Xiao Yao walked absent-mindedly to the place where the lanterns were sold. At this moment he heard Xiao and Kang's tender voice. Wow, that ship is so big. It looks like a small house. Xiao Yao subconsciously looked over, and found that a tall ship had appeared in the middle of the lake at some point in time. The ship was covered in red silk and was brightly lit. There were rows of people standing on the railings. However, because there were too many lanterns on their side and it was too bright, it was difficult to see who was standing on the ship. However, the ship was quite grand and imposing. It was probably the ship of some local wealthy family or official. He had seen many of them during his travels, and did not take it to heart. At this moment, they were also attracted by Little and Kang's childish words about choosing the lanterns. This is a little rabbit, what's that? Xiao Yao walked over and looked at it carefully before giving the answer. It should be a winged bee, just like the bees we saw in Sichuan. It's just that its head is bigger. There were many animals and plants in North Korea that he had never seen before. He only knew a little about them after listening to the commoners' introductions along the way. Little and Kong replied with a no, and asked a few other questions. Xiao Yao could basically answer them one by one. Little and Kong immediately looked at him with admiration. Second uncle, you're so amazing. You're not stupid at all. When Xiao Yao heard the latter half of the sentence, he almost slipped. He did not feel the slightest bit of praise. At this moment, Little and Kong took the rabbit lantern that his second uncle had bought for him, and showed it to his mother. Chu Qingyan had half of her attention on her son. When she saw him walking over with the lantern, she could not help but smile. Xiao Su glanced sideways and happened to see the little fellow's smile. He looked at the pair of eyes that were as bright as the stars and finally knew who his son had inherited his eyes from. Xiao Yao stood on the stone steps and looked at the family of three. He could not help but smile. He was very envious and suddenly felt a yearning for home. It was a great blessing to have a wife and children by his side on such a beautiful day. At this moment, more than 10 figures appeared on the other side of the shore. Gong Sun Shui stood on the shore and looked at the huge ship. Her face was as calm as water, and no one could tell what she was thinking. Sect Master, someone saw Lu Xing appear on the ship just now. Qiu Feng followed beside her and reported softly. Gong Sun Shui glanced at the commoners coming and going on both sides of the shore and ordered. Very well, find a ship. I want to board it. At this distance, she could reach it very quickly with her qinggong, but she did not want to disturb the commoners. If possible, she hoped that this matter could be resolved quietly. Sect Master, should we wait for Qing Yu and the others to gather before we take action? Qiu Feng looked at the huge ship and asked worriedly. Gong Sun Shui waved her hand. We can't wait. Send a signal to Qing Yu to tell them our location. They will find us later. Qiu Feng obeyed and quickly found the ship. A group of more than 10 people quickly boarded the ship and slowly approached the huge ship. There were several people standing at the highest point of the ship. One of them was the leader of the black-clothed men, Lu Xing, whom Gong Sun Shui was looking for. He looked at the small ship on the lake and smiled eerily. She's quite fast. I just appeared and she's already here. As expected of a clan leader. It's a pity that she will lose her life here tonight. Someone behind him agreed. Isn't that still Master's plan flawless? Then what should we do next? Of course we open the door and welcome our guests. Lu Xing smiled brightly, then waved his sleeves and entered the cabin. On the other side of the shore, Xiao Yao felt that he had to be prepared to be fed dog food at any time by his royal brother and sister-in-law's side. Thus, he decided to be a good younger brother and carried Kong, Jasper and Hualing away, saving the two people's world that he had destroyed today. Second uncle, play hide and seek with them. Let's run quickly. Little Kong was suddenly lifted up and was a bit excited. When he turned around and saw Hualing and Jasper being squeezed by the crowd, he immediately clapped his hands and shouted. Xiao Yao chuckled and placed him on his neck, exaggeratedly saying, All right, Kong, sit tight. Second uncle is going to set off. Hee. Second uncle, hurry. Little Kong laughed happily. Encouraged by Kong, Xiao Yao walked quickly. After a while, he passed by a bridge and got closer to the giant ship. He caught a glimpse of a figure from the corner of his eye. He took a closer look. Wasn't that Qiu Feng? And in front of him, there was a patch of snow that disappeared into the cabin. His heart skipped a beat. Could it be that what he saw today wasn't an illusion? Second uncle, let's go. Little and Kong was unhappy that he suddenly stopped and pulled his ear. Xiao slapped his butt and anxiously said, Kong, second uncle has something to take care of. You. Then Xiao turned around and there was no one behind him. Oh no, Hualing and Jasper were both gone. What to do? He could only bring in Kong over to take a look. Chapter 1638. Kong, I met an acquaintance and wanted to go over to take a look, but the others are not around. I don't feel at ease leaving you anywhere. Why don't you come with me? Xiao discussed with Kong. Kong looked at him generously. That's easy. Xiao raised his hand in satisfaction. Kong raised his hand and high-fived him. Then, Xiao carried Kong and quickly approached the giant ship. At this moment, in the cabin, Gongsun Shui brought her people in. It was luxurious inside. On one side, there was a woman playing the zither. On the other side, there were tables and chairs with exquisite food and wine. She glanced at the dishes on the table, and looked indifferently at Lu Xing who was sitting at the table. You are in such a good mood. How could Lu Xing not hear the mockery in her words? He laughed. Sect leader Gongsun, I have prepared these dishes for you. I have been waiting here for a long time. The previous few times, we were in a hurry and did not have the chance to sit down and talk. Now that we have the chance, I hope sect leader Gongsun will do me the honor and sit down for a drink. Qiu Feng had never seen such a shameless person. He had tried to assassinate the sect leader time and time again. Now that they had found out that he had stolen the token, he still had the cheek to invite the sect leader to a meal. She was about to draw her sword but was stopped by the sect leader. Sect leader. She called out unhappily. Calm down. Let's see what tricks he has up his sleeve. Gongsun Shui said softly. After comforting her subordinates, she looked at Lu Xing again. It is my honor to be invited by the pavilion master of Flowing Cloud Pavilion. With that, she walked up without hesitation and sat down opposite Lu Xing. She took off her veil and revealed her beautiful face. Lu Xing looked at the woman sitting in front of him. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that she was a young girl. She was so young, but she was already the highest ruler of the Moon Tribe. Before she took over the Sun Tribe and the Moon Tribe, Xiao had been in control of the imperial court. When she took over, Xiao had wanted to nurture her into a puppet. However, this woman seemed to let him do as he pleased on the surface, numbing Xiao and the others. Behind his back, she had begun to gather the people's hearts and military power. In less than 2 or 3 years, she had actually forced Xiao to hand over his authority. Although he was in a different position from her, it did not stop him from admiring her. However, this admiration was not only for her ability, but also for her appearance. A covetous look flashed across Lu Xing's eyes, but it quickly disappeared. Even Gongsun Shui, who was sitting in front of him, did not notice it. She vaguely felt that this person's gaze was too direct. She did not like it, but she did not show it. I should be the one saying that. It is my fortune to be able to invite Sect Master Gongsun. Lu Xing poured her a cup of wine, then picked up his own cup. Come, let me toast you. Gongsun Shui did not look at the wine, and said directly, Flowing Cloud Pavilion Master, you should know why I am here. There is no need for formalities. What do you want? Lu Xing looked at her blankly. Sect Master Gongsun, I don't know what you are talking about. I only heard that you were passing by, so I kindly prepared a table of good wine and good food. Is there a problem with that? Qiu Feng's face was filled with anger. If it were not for the sect master's warning, she would have bitten his face. She had never seen such a shameless person. Gongsun Shui's face was cold. Flowing Cloud Pavilion Master, you must be joking. I just arrived at Westlake, and you have already prepared food. You are too well informed. If you were not waiting for me, the food would not have been warmed up just right, and the wine would not have been warmed up. Without clinking cups, Lu Xing didn't feel humiliated. He turned the wine cup around and drank by himself. After finishing the wine, he put down the wine cup and continued to pour wine. A mysterious smile appeared on his face. If Sect Master Gongsun thinks so, I can't do anything about it. Gongsun Shui was not annoyed by his shameless behavior. Her face was still calm. Flowing Cloud Pavilion Master. I remember that the Flowing Cloud Pavilion was founded by your elder brother, but 6 years ago he was killed. His wife was weak, and his son was young. That was how you got the chance to inherit the position of Pavilion Master. However, not long after, your sister-in-law and nephew went missing. People once thought that you murdered your elder brother in order to seize the position of Pavilion Master, and killed his wife and son. Is that true? In an instant, Lu Xing's face darkened, and killing intent appeared in his eyes. On the giant ship, there were people patrolling. Suddenly, they noticed a small boat beside them. They could not help but feel strange. Where did this boat come from? The patrolling people took a look, and said carelessly, maybe the wind is strong, and it floated here from somewhere else. Don't make such a fuss. The two of them walked away as they talked. However, there was a person hiding on the edge of the boat, with a child sitting on his shoulder. The two of them avoided the guards and leaned against a window. The light shone on the two of them, revealing their true appearances. It was Xiao Yao and Little Nkong. At this time, Xiao Yao stretched out his finger and gently poked the window paper. The light inside came out. He looked closer and quickly saw the situation inside. Little Nkong followed suit. He sat on his neck, raised his little chubby hand and poked a small hole. Then he narrowed his eyes and looked inside. At this time, Xiao Yao happened to hear Gongsun Shui's words. He could not help but feel a little jealous. His ice beauty had never said such a long sentence to him. He could not help but stare at the fat Lu Xing. At this time, the conversation inside continued. I didn't expect that Sect Master Gongsun would pay attention to the matters of a small sect like ours. It's really surprising. What he meant was that Gongsun Shui was meddling in other people's business. Your pavilion has killed many of my ministers in the past few years. Sect Master, do you think I should pay attention to it? Gongsun Shui ignored the mockery in his words and replied coldly. Taking someone's money to solve their problems is a rule of our Flowing Cloud Pavilion. If Sect Master Gongsun has someone you don't like, as long as you pay enough money, we guarantee that we'll give you their heads in less than 3 days, Lu Yin provoked. It was obvious that the incident just now had hit him where it hurt, and that was why he revealed his true nature. Gongsun Shui sneered. If that's the case, name a price and give me the token. She did not want to beat around the bush with him anymore. She was not willing to talk to this kind of person who killed his brother and stole the throne. The token is right here. Lu Yin quickly took out a golden token from his pocket. Seeing Gongsun Shui staring at the token, he revealed a strange smile. But we'll have to see if Sect Master Gongsun is still alive to take it. Gongsun Shui quickly sensed that there was something wrong with his words. She said in a low voice. What do you mean? Lu Xing's eyes revealed a sly smile. Sect Master Gongsun, have you noticed that you have no strength at all? You don't even have the strength to hold a wine cup. Gongsun Shui felt that something was wrong. She wanted to stand up, but as if her strength had been sucked out, she fell back down. Chapter 1639. Sect Master. Xiao Feng and the rest were about to pull out their swords to protect their master, but before they could even touch the hilt, they fell down without any strength. Everyone was shocked. What's going on? We can't move. Gongsun Shui couldn't see the scene behind her, but she knew what had happened just by listening to the sound. She narrowed her eyes and looked in Lu Xing's direction. What did you do? She had been observing the cabin from the moment she came in, and didn't find anything wrong. She didn't touch the food on the table, and didn't even touch the wine cup. How could she have fallen into a trap? Lu Xing felt that the person in front of him was overly calm, but thinking that it was normal for such a woman to be able to sit firmly in the position of sect master. He rubbed his chin and smiled wretchedly. I know you're a cautious person. How could ordinary little tricks escape your eyes? Of course, I wouldn't reveal any flaws. As he spoke, he drank another cup of wine. Then he said smugly, Sect Master, do you think the incense in this room smells good? Although it can't compare to the ones in your palace, it's still considered expensive here. Could it be the problem with the incense? Gongsun Shui glanced at the stove where the smoke was still curling up. Lu Xing saw through her thoughts and chuckled. Not only the incense, there's also the sound of the zither. I wonder if Sect Master Gongsun has heard of Fu Lixiang, the Nine Souls sound? Could it be the Nine Souls incense? This was a unique assassination technique that had been lost for a long time. If the Fu Lixiang was lit alone, it had the effect of helping people sleep and wouldn't hurt people. But with the Nine Souls sound, it was different. When the two were mixed together, it was an irresistible bone-softening powder, causing people to lose their strength and be unable to move for a short period of time. Not bad. I didn't expect Sect Master Gongsun to be so knowledgeable at such a young age. It's not in vain that I spent so much effort to deal with you. Lu Xing laughed loudly, without any self-awareness of being a villain, as if he was very proud of it. Hearing it, it made people itch with anger. For example, Xiao outside. He gritted his teeth and almost crushed the deck of the boat. Second uncle, is that bad guy going to harm Gongsun Yi? Let's go save her. Little Ankong grabbed his ear and said anxiously. Xiao was surprised that Little Ankong remembered the Ice Beauty. But thinking that the Ice Beauty and Little Ankong had met a few times, it was normal for him to remember her. Let's wait for a while. Although Xiao was anxious, he was still rational. He believed that since she dared to barge into the tiger's den, she must have made the necessary preparations. She might have reinforcements nearby. He would wait and see what would happen next. Second uncle, that bad guy is approaching Gongsun Yi. Xiao Kong patted his head anxiously. Xiao hurriedly grabbed his hand. Little ancestor, be gentler. I can't watch anymore. Inside, the conversation continued. Gongsun said calmly, completely unaffected by the situation. Her voice was clear and calm. Drifting Cloud Pavilion Master, I know you accepted Suyu's mission to steal the token. Why don't we make a deal? I'll pay you 3 times the amount he gave you, and you return the token to me and let us go. It was as natural as buying something. There was no fear at all, nor was there any fear of what would happen next. Lu Xing felt that even a man would find it difficult to remain calm in such a situation, let alone a woman. He felt that Gongsun was indeed not an ordinary person, but as for the conditions, Sect Master Gongsun, you're wrong. The mission we received was not the token, but your life. Furthermore, we the Flowing Cloud Pavilion pay attention to our reputation. If we don't work for our customers and instead attack them, how can we establish ourselves? So, I'm sorry that we can't comply with your conditions, but, Gongsun narrowed her eyes and listened to him continue speaking. Lu Xing looked at her lecherously, his gaze sliding over her exquisite body. However, I, Lu Xing, have played with so many women, but I've never seen one as beautiful as you. If you're willing to spend the night with me, I can consider sparing your life for a few more days, and also give your subordinates a clean break. You're shameless. How dare you have designs on our sect master? Qiufeng and the others were furious when they heard this, but they couldn't move at the moment, and could only shout weakly. Lu Xing glanced at them and said condescendingly, you still have the strength to shout now. Later, you'll know what it means to live a life worse than death. Sect master, we're useless. We can't protect you. We deserve to die. Qing Yu and the others didn't know when they would come. Qiufeng was so regretful that he wanted to apologize with his life. Gongsun also didn't expect this person to think of such a way to humiliate her. She looked at him angrily. Lu Xing, how dare you? If I can get the service of a sect master, I, Lu Xing, will have something to brag about in the future. Lu Xing stood up, his tall body bending down. He reached out his hand, wanting to touch her face. As early as the first time he saw her, he was tempted. He wondered what such a pure person would be like in bed. If he could hear the panting in her clear voice, it would definitely be ecstasy. Lu Xing, what are you doing? Don't touch our sect master. Bastard. Looking at the nauseating hand that was so close to her, Gongsun was filled with anger. However, she couldn't move for a moment. A sense of powerlessness surged in her heart. For so many years, she worked hard to be strong, so that she wouldn't fall into a passive position and be controlled by others. But now that she had stepped into such a situation again, she was unwilling and helpless. Her eyes were fixed. She pursed her lips, and her teeth were ready to bite the tip of her tongue. If he really dared to do anything to her, she would just die. Anyway, she had already set up the next situation. With or without her, the situation wouldn't change. However, just as she was about to close her eyes, the sound of something breaking through the air was heard. Lu Xing then screamed. Ah! Lu Xing looked at the sharp wooden plank in his hand. Blood flowed out uncontrollably. At this time he was proud of his success. Unexpectedly, he was caught off guard by such a sneak attack. He was furious. Who? That scoundrel is hiding in the dark. Come out now. Gong Suanxue and the others didn't expect this to happen. They all thought that Qingyu might have come, but they vaguely felt that this wasn't Qingyu's style. Gong Suanxue, on the other hand, felt a strong inner strength in the wind just now. None of the people who came with her had such a strong inner strength. Who could it be? Who would save her at this moment? Just as Lu Xing's voice fell, the cabin door was kicked open from the outside. In the smoke and dust, under the dazzling lights, a figure with black hair in a green robe stepped on Luolua's light and strode in. Oh no, there was a little child sitting on his shoulder. Little rat, who are you calling a rat? The person who came in smiled widely and was magnanimous. Seeing him and hearing the familiar voice, Gong Suanxue couldn't help but smile. Suddenly she felt relieved. Chapter 1640. Scoundrel. Who are you calling a scoundrel? Xiao looked at Lu Xing with a smile as he leaned against the pillar. He was indescribably relaxed, as if he was just greeting a friend he hadn't seen for a long time. Lu Xing looked at Cheng Yaojin, who had appeared out of nowhere, and was unable to suppress his anger. Scoundrel, I'm talking about you. Oh. Xiao turned to Xiao and Kong and smiled. Someone admits that he's a scoundrel. How honest. Mother said that honesty is a good child, and you can get a little red flower. Xiao and Kong nodded cleverly, sparing no effort to sprinkle salt on Lu Xing's wound. As soon as Xiao and Kong finished speaking, everyone present could not help but laugh. Originally, everyone was furious, but there was nothing they could do. When they were close to despair, Xiao appeared like a god, causing everyone to be extremely excited and pleasantly surprised. Gong Suanxue was also very happy, but when she saw that he had come alone with a child beside him, she wished that he had never appeared. Coming in alone like this, wasn't he just sending himself to death? Lu Xing also noticed this problem. He pulled out the wooden block on the back of his hand and sneered at Xiao. Brat, don't try to be brave. Do you think that you can fight against our entire ship by yourself? You're just here to die. After entering the cabin and seeing that the ice beauty was fine, Xiao was relieved. Is that so? His face was fearless as he provoked. We'll only know after we try. He raised his hand, and another wooden board that he had dug out from the outside of the ship was inserted into the zither at the side. The woman who was still playing the zither was so frightened that she fell to the ground. He smiled and said, "This king has always been protective of women, but forget about the snake and scorpion beauty." Lu Xing chuckled, his smile extremely cold. Men. With that, the assassins of Flowing Cloud Pavilion appeared one after another, holding long swords. The tips of the swords were all pointed at Xiao, forming a circle in the blink of an eye. Gong Suanxue's face darkened. The people on the ship were all from Flowing Cloud Pavilion, and every one of them was an expert. Even if Xiao's martial arts were higher than theirs, he was still outnumbered. Gong Suanxue immediately said, "Xiao, leave. I don't need you to save me." With that, she said to Lu Xing, "Flowing Cloud Pavilion Master, this is a matter between us. Don't drag unimportant people in." Not important. Lu Xing raised his injured hand with a ferocious expression. He injured me. It won't be easy for him to leave. I'm going to tear him into pieces to relieve the hatred in my heart. Xiao revealed a look of disdain. Against a pervert like you, if one comes, I'll beat one. If two come, I'll beat two. Despicable and shameless. You only know how to use underhanded means to bully the weak. You only know how to bully girls. You're actually the head of a pavilion. If I were one of your subordinates, I would feel ashamed. With that, he gave Gong Suanxue a comforting look and said, "Don't worry. I'll show you how I'm going to avenge you later." Gongsun Shui felt helpless and worried at the same time. Lu Xing was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. He immediately ordered, "Capture him alive is fine." What he meant was that as long as he caught the person, it didn't matter how serious his injuries were. With that, all the assassins swarmed forward. Xiao Yao curled his lips into a cold smile and patted Little Kong and slid down his shoulder and wrapped his arms around his neck. His whole body was wrapped around his back like an octopus. He didn't need Xiao Yao to free his hands to carry him. He smiled cutely and said, "Second uncle, I'm fine now. You can start teaching people a lesson." Although Kongan was young, he had been playing with the retired emperor's father since he could walk. Xiao Su had also arranged for Xiao Lai to teach him martial arts. Hence, he was stronger than the average child and was agile. At such a young age, he had already shown his calm side. "Understood. Close your eyes, otherwise your father will skin me alive." Xiao Yao chuckled. After dodging a move, he squatted down and said to the guard lying on the ground, "Let me borrow your sword." The guard was flattered. "Use it as you wish." Xiao Yao smiled elegantly and pulled out the sword. Without looking back, he stabbed the person who had ambushed him and pulled it out without hesitation. He stood up and blocked the killing move in front of him. With a slight smirk, he lifted his leg and sent the person flying out of the cabin. Because Xiao Yao had kicked the cabin door open, and the assassins had broken the window and flew out, there was a convection in the air. The incense in the air had dissipated, and the sound of the zither had been destroyed by him. Although it couldn't cure Gongsun Shui and the others, at least they weren't as weak as before. They could move a little, but it was still very difficult for them to hold the sword. Gongsun Shui struggled to prop herself up, and looked up just in time to see him shuttling nimbly among the assassins. He was like the king of hell reaping the lives of his enemies. There was a careless smile on his face, and his eyes were as cold as snow. This was the Xiao Yao she had never seen before. He was different from the frivolous person she had seen in the past. He was so cold and yet so powerful. For a moment, her heart was moved by him. In half a cup of tea's time, more than 10 people had fallen around Xiao Yao. He stood in the middle of the cabin like a demon from hell. His clear eyes were filled with killing intent. He held the sword diagonally downwards, and a drop of blood dripped from the tip of the sword. Lu Xing didn't expect his martial arts to be so strong. He was carrying a child, and yet he was able to take care of more than 10 masters. He was so angry that he laughed. "Brat, do you think I only have so many people?" He turned to look at Gongsun Shui and revealed a bloodthirsty look. "In order to prevent you from escaping, we have already set up an inescapable trap." Gongsun Shui's eyes turned cold. She saw Lu Xing take out something and throw it out of the window at lightning speed. There was the sound of fireworks and then silence. There was no need to guess. This person was sending a signal. Xiao Yao narrowed his eyes. He didn't expect him to have such a trick up his sleeve. The situation seemed to be a little tricky. He didn't dare to be careless. It was difficult for 2 fists to fight against 4 hands. It wasn't a problem to take care of 10 or 20 people, but the problem was that if the opponents kept coming, he would be exhausted. Seeing this, Gongsun Shui propped herself up and said to Xiao Yao with red eyes, "Go, take Kong Kong and leave. Don't stay here for too long." If she died here, it would be her fate, but she didn't want to be a burden to him. Xiao Yao looked at her across the air. The murderous look in his eyes disappeared, and was replaced by a bright smile. "I won't leave you alone." Gongsun Shui almost lost herself in his gentle smile. When she came back to her senses and wanted to say something, he had already retracted his gaze. As soon as he finished speaking, someone quickly stepped on the river and arrived. The sound of rushing water indicated that there were quite a few people. Lu Xing was proud. "Xiao Yao, prepare to die." Xiao Yao heard this and laughed. He looked at Lu Xing and sneered. "So what if it's an inescapable trap? Do you believe that I won't break it tonight?" As soon as he finished speaking, someone boarded the boat. Lu Xing didn't bother to argue with him and looked at the door. Before he saw the person, he heard the voice. A deep and cold voice pierced through the air. "Who dares to bully this prince's younger brother and son?" Chapter 1641. When this voice fell, Lu Xing was a little surprised. Could it be that the people who came were not his people? When this person walked in, all the mysteries were revealed. Xiao Su stepped on the wooden planks and walked in with a cold aura. Behind him were Ji Linyang, Hualing, Ethereal and the rest. When Xiao Su's voice sounded, little Ankong had already opened his eyes and called out Daddy in surprise. When Xiao Yao saw the reinforcements, he relaxed. However, when his royal brother looked over coldly, he felt that he had heaved a sigh of relief a little too early. I told you to look after Kong Kong, but you brought him here to take risks. Go back and think about how to explain it to me. Xiao Yao immediately revealed a flattering smile. Royal brother, I didn't do it on purpose, but there was no one by my side, so I couldn't just let Kong Kong go. When he said this, Hualing glared at him with eyes full of resentment. If not for second master bringing little master to play hide and seek with them, how could they have lost him? You're right. Xiao Su snorted coldly. Xiao Yao chuckled, but his smile was a little guilty. As for the Yu clan members who saw Xiao Yao for the first time, they had just been subdued by his powerful fighting strength. Now that they saw him like this, they couldn't help but be shocked. Was this person the same person who saved them just now? They were very suspicious. Lu Xing saw that they were talking to each other, and did not put him in their eyes at all. He was angry and angry. Why are you people ruining my plans again? What good things do you have? You're bullying my people with numbers, and you still have the nerve? Xiao Su's gaze swept over coldly. Lu Xing's legs went soft, and when he realized his weakness, he couldn't help but fiercely despise himself in his heart. How could he be scared by this brat? However, if Lu Xing knew his identity, he wouldn't think so. The man standing in front of him was once a general of millions of soldiers. He was an ambitious king who rebuked a region. He was the emperor of the 9-5. Rome wasn't built in a day. The coldness in his eyes was accumulated from years of bloody battles. The number of people who died under his hands was probably more than the number of people he had seen. Heh, you still dare to spout nonsense in my territory. You're simply tired of living. When my people arrive, I'll see if you can still laugh. In front of his subordinates, Lu Xing knew that he could not be cowardly, otherwise, his morale would be gone. Furthermore, his men would arrive very soon. Following Xiao Su's line of sight, Lu Xing had a bad premonition. Through the broken window, he saw a group of black-clothed people stacked on the deck like a human pyramid. Weren't those his people? What have you done? His momentum was gone. Lu Xing was like an arrow at the end of its flight. He glared at these people who had suddenly appeared. Hualing led his men to detain everyone present. Lu Xing wanted to make a final struggle, but he was subdued by Xiao Yao's sword. Lu Xing was forced to kneel on the ground. He raised his head and said unwillingly, "This clearly has nothing to do with you. Why did you interfere? If Gong Xuanxue died, wouldn't that be exactly what you wanted? The Sun Moon clan and Sun clan are at odds. If you help Gong Xuanxue, isn't that the same as letting a tiger return to the mountain?" Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. "You talk too much." Hualing then took off Lu Xing's boots and stuffed them in his mouth. Xiao Yao clapped his hands and cheered. "Our Xiao clan has always done things according to our wishes. As long as we're happy, don't try to sow discord. Your skills are too lacking." When Ethereal came in, it had already detoxified everyone. Now Gong Xuanxue, Qiufeng, and the others could move freely. At this time, someone came forward and took the token from Lu Xing. After Qiufeng verified it, she slapped him and scolded. "Shameless. Even a toad wants to eat swan meat." This slap and scolding made Xiao Yao feel good. He had long wanted to kick her a few times, but after considering his image, he gave up. At this time, Xiao Su walked over and directly carried his son away. He coldly ordered, "Tear it down." After saying this, he left. This ship was perfectly fine. Why did you tear it down? Because Xiao Yao had saved them. Qiufeng didn't have many misunderstandings and asked curiously. Xiao Yao shook his hands and moved his shoulders. It had been a long time since he had done such a big thing. His entire body was sore. When he heard Qiufeng's question, he smiled and replied, "The reason is very simple. It's because of Kong Kong. I don't like this ship." Tearing the ship down without a word. This really was his royal brother's temper. However, when he thought of the look his royal brother gave him before he left, he suddenly felt a little hopeless. When he returned, would his royal brother also tear him down like he did the ship? After all, he was the one who put Kong Kong in danger. Forget it, forget it. Let's not think about it. He turned his head and saw the person talking to his subordinate. He smiled faintly. Fortunately, she was fine. Gong Sun Shui turned her head as if she sensed something. When their eyes met, she was slightly stunned. However, Xiao Yao was a little embarrassed and wanted to look away. She gave some instructions to her subordinates and walked towards him. When Ethereal saw this scene, he patted Xiao Yao's shoulder when he passed by. Second Master, do your best. Fire Spirit was also like a cannon. Second Master, do your best. Ji Linyang, who was watching from the side, was also the same. Second Young Master Xiao, do your best. Thus, everyone retreated, except for Xiao Liqi who stayed behind to tear down the ship. Xiao Yao's mouth twitched. This group of people didn't mind watching the show. At this time, Gong Sun Shui was already standing in front of him. Seeing that his expression was a little strange, she put aside the words she had prepared and asked in confusion. What's wrong with you? Xiao Yao's mouth twitched. He couldn't tell her that those people were cheering for him and laughing at his mother, right? He regained his composure and said with a smile, It's nothing. Are your people all right? Gong Sun Shui shook her head. You came just in time. They weren't hurt. She paused and a slight ripple appeared in her eyes. She smiled gently. It's all thanks to you just now. I'm very grateful. Xiao Yao was very satisfied that he was able to be the hero who saved the beauty. Now that he received the Ice Beauty's gratitude, he was practically bursting with joy. Moreover, it was rare to get the Ice Beauty to smile. He felt that even if he died here today, it would be worth it. However, he didn't show it on his face. He pretended to be indifferent and acted like a gentleman. He waved his hand. This is a small matter. Don't take it to heart. Just as he wanted to show his elegance, Qing Yu and the others hurried over and joined them. They were blaming themselves and asking for forgiveness. Gong Sun Shui comforted them with a few words. Xiao Yao was a little dissatisfied that his time alone with the Ice Beauty was interrupted. However, he couldn't do anything about it, and could only watch from the side. Qing Yu's impression of Xiao Yao was that he was from the Japanese clan. She looked at him with vigilance and then said to her sect master, Sect Master, should we go back as soon as possible? Xiao Yao, who had been listening to their conversation, heard this and his face fell. The Ice Beauty was leaving? He hadn't even talked to her properly yet. Gong Sun Shui glanced at Xiao Yao's sad face from the corner of her eye, and felt inexplicably good. Chapter 1642. Hearing that Green Jade was about to leave, Qiu Feng immediately presented the token that he had just brought back to his sect master. I have confirmed that this is the token that we lost. Gong Suanxue took the token and glanced at it before putting it in her sleeve. Very good. Thank you for your hard work. It's already late. We have been on the move for several days. Sect Master should be tired. Why don't you rest for a night in Bright Jade City before returning? Qiu Feng followed Green Jade's question and suggested. Gong Suanxue glanced at her subordinates, who had been working day and night, and felt that it made sense. She nodded and accepted Qiu Feng's suggestion. Xiao Yao heaved a sigh of relief. At least they weren't leaving so quickly. He walked over and said to Gong Suanxue, The people from Flowing Cloud Pavilion have been subdued. What do you plan to do with them? Gong Suanxue said to Green Jade, Go and take them over. Take my token and lock them up in the city's prison. They will be escorted back to the capital tomorrow. Green Jade nodded and went to hand over the task to Hualing. Qiu Feng saw that the two seemed to have something to say, so he led the rest of the people away and stood guard somewhere else. Soon, there was no one around Xiao Yao and Gong Suanxue. Why did you leave with so few people this time? If I didn't happen to pass by you for safety's sake, you should bring more people with you in the future. Xiao Yao coughed softly and looked away unnaturally. Gong Suanxue knew that he was concerned about her. She nodded. I will be careful in the future. All right. Why are you here? And it seemed that the people from the Xiao family were all here. She couldn't help but be curious. After saying this, she thought of their situation and added, I don't mean anything else. If it's inconvenient, you don't have to tell me. Xiao Yao looked at her with amusement. Don't be so sensitive. We didn't come here to do anything bad. There's nothing inconvenient about it. We found the remains of my brother's subordinate who died in battle many years ago. We suspect that he is still alive, so we came to find him. A subordinate? Gongsu and Xiao was surprised. You risked your lives to come here for him? The war between the Sun-Moon race and the Sun-Moon race was on the verge of breaking out. Yet they had actually come here without any regard for their own safety. No, that cold-looking big brother of the Xiao clan was actually so loyal and righteous. Xiao Yao could tell what she was thinking from her surprise. He smiled. Are you surprised that my big brother looks so unreasonable? She felt that she was making a fuss over nothing and couldn't help but say, I didn't mean anything else. I know you don't have any other intentions. Didn't I say that you don't have to be so cautious? We're all friends. Before she could reply, Xiao Yao continued to speak. Actually, some people are not as they appear to be. My big brother is the most flesh and blood person I've ever seen in this world. If it weren't for him, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to live so carefree and not have to manage the family business. Listening to his self-talk, Gongsun Shui looked at his handsome side profile and thought to herself, you are not what you appear to be. You look like a sloppy person, but you are actually a responsible person. So just treat him as an ordinary person. As long as you don't touch his bottom line, everything is negotiable. Gongsun Shui was curious. What's your big brother's bottom line? Xiao Yao said without hesitation. My sister-in-law and nephew. Gongsun Shui nodded in understanding. She could tell that Xiao Su cared a lot about his wife and son. Her gaze fell on the huge ship that had been dismantled. Don't blame him for wanting to dismantle the ship just now. Hearing this, Xiao Yao felt a chill run down his spine. He hoped that when he returned, his royal brother would see that Xiao and Kong was unharmed and let him go. Xiao Yao, thank you so much for today. I didn't expect that after that incident, you would still stand up and help me. Gongsun Shui stood on the shore and pressed down her hair that was blown by the wind. She smiled gently. When she saw him appear like a god, she was both surprised and pleasantly surprised. Xiao Yao waved his hand. That's a different matter. I'm not the kind of person who acts on impulse. Gongsun Shui smiled faintly. The wind was a bit strong at this time, causing their clothes to flutter. A handsome man and a beautiful woman. It was a very eye-catching scene, but there would always be a time when they had to part. A trace of reluctance flashed in her eyes, but she quickly suppressed it. She looked at her subordinate standing not far away and her smile disappeared. She said to Xiao Yao with a calm and distant expression, It's getting late, we have to go. I will remember today's kindness in my heart. If there's anything you need in the future, as long as I can do it, I will do my best. Then we'll meet again. The person he missed dearly was about to leave. Xiao Yao was very reluctant, but seeing her distant expression and the fact that he didn't know what reason he could use to make her stay, he just stood there in a daze, unable to say a single word. Hualing, who had just dismantled the ship, walked over and heard Gongsun Shui's words. He blinked. The duck that had been cooked by the second master was about to fly away? The normally eloquent second master had dropped the ball at this time. He turned his eyes and immediately walked over. Second master, what happened to your hand? Are you hurt? Why is it bleeding? Hualing was simply a godly assist. Xiao Yao had been immersed in the joy of seeing the ice beauty and hadn't noticed that he was injured. When he heard Hualing shout that he wanted everyone to hear, he finally felt a slight pain in his arm. His eyes lit up. Hualing's shout had come at the right time. He raised his injured hand. Because his winter clothes were rather thick, the blood only came out now. It seemed like he had taken a sword strike to protect Kong Kong. But no matter what, he was injured for the ice beauty. She wouldn't leave him be injured, right? I'm really injured. It hurts so much. Xiao Yao pitifully cried out in Gongsun Shui's direction. Hualing's lips twitched. Second master, your acting skills are too exaggerated. Hearing that Xiao Yao was injured, Gong Sun Shui immediately stopped in her tracks and quickly walked over. Looking at his arm that was soaked in blood, a trace of pain flashed through her eyes. She didn't expect him to be injured so badly. You have to apply medicine quickly. She looked at Hualing as she spoke. She had come in a hurry and didn't have any medicine on her, so she placed her hopes on Hualing. Hualing immediately waved his hand. We didn't bring any either, but that's fine. The place we live is quite close to here, so we'll go back together. Xiao Yao felt that Hualing's words were simply too much to his liking. That's right. Moreover, the inn we live in is very big, so you can all rest there for a night. Gong Sun Shui's attention had been completely pulled away by the bloody sleeve, so she just nodded no matter what they said. Only when they returned to the inn did she suddenly react. Why did she follow them in a daze? It didn't matter if she didn't come. In the end, she could only let out a long sigh. Forget it, let's just leave it like this. Chapter 1643. Chu Qingyan and the others were not surprised by the arrival of Gong Sunshui and the others. This was because on the way back, she had already heard about it from Big Ice Cube. Adding on her son's vivid description of the shocking scene, she found that Xiao Yao was truly moved by Gong Sunshui. Otherwise he would not have put himself in danger. So she gave the order and ordered people to prepare a place for them to stay. Everything was normal, and they did not show any surprise because of their arrival. Because of what happened in the Xiao family, Gong Sunshui was still a bit worried about how to face them. She never thought that they would treat her the same as before. She couldn't help but feel grateful. Because Xiao Yao was injured, he was quickly sent back to his room. After Xiao Su, Chu Qingyan, and the others expressed their concern for him, they left. They left some time and space for the two of them. Ethereal came in with a plate with medicine and gauze on it. Before Gong Sunshui could speak, he put down the plate and said that he was tired from the night and wanted to go back to rest. He would leave everything to her. Then he gave a yawn and ran away. Gong Sunshui was stunned. Were these people all loaches? They ran away so quickly. Xiao Yao saw this scene and couldn't help smiling. It's fine, I can take care of it myself. I've bandaged myself many times before. When he was about to get up, Gong Sunshui stopped him and ordered, sit down. Xiao Yao rubbed his nose and watched her turn to get the medicine. Gong Sunshui sat down in front of him and had him stretch out his hand. Because the temperature was low in the winter, the blood had already coagulated. The clothes were stuck to the wound, so she had to cut the clothes and then clean the wound. Just as she was thinking about needing hot water, Hualing knocked on the door and brought the hot water in. After putting it down, he also ran away. Xiao Yao found it funny in his heart. In order to set him up with the ice beauty, everyone was sparing no effort. Am I that scary? Gong Sunshui was confused. Although there were people who said that she was scary when she had a stern face, it was not to the extent that she could scare people away. Xiao Yao pretended to think seriously before saying, You're not that scary, but if you can eat Chong Xiao Xiao, perhaps everyone will like you even more. They will like you even more. Gong Sunshui's attention was fixed on the word more. She was a little stunned. You mean they don't hate me? Not only do they not hate you, they like you very much. However, Xiao Yao was too embarrassed to say this. He coughed lightly and said, Well, they don't hate you. You don't have to worry that your identity will affect your interactions with them. We are not the kind of people who care about identity. Gong Sunshui's eyes lit up. She immediately thought of the time when they were in the cabin. He had called himself king, which meant that this person's status was not low. She felt that he was a mystery, and she couldn't help but want to find out more about him. However, she knew that she was in no position to ask him. Obviously feeling that she was not in a good mood, Xiao Yao thought that he had said something wrong. When she was cleaning his wound, he did not dare to say a word, fearing that he would make more mistakes. The sword wound looked a little hideous, but it was not very serious. Gong Sunshui heaved a sigh of relief. She helped him apply medicine, and then tied it with gauze. When she was tying the knot, she found that there was more than one scar on his arm. Looking at the depth of the scar, she could tell that it was an injury from many years ago. However, it was obvious that the injury was very serious. If it was not for the fact that the skin and flesh were torn open, there would not be a scar after so many years. Your injuries. Seeing her gaze stop at the past scars on his arm, Xiao explained indifferently. I was disobedient in the past, so I was beaten. How was that disobedient? There was a kind of punishment in this world. It was called, I feel that you are disobedient, so you should be punished. Back then, Consort Yu was flaunting her power in the harem, but she did not give birth to any children. Therefore, the concubines of the princes in the palace were the first to be an eyesore to her. Every day, she would find trouble with his mother. He was young and did not understand the twists and turns of this, so naturally, he would protect his mother. Consort Yu had even more reason to say that he had offended her and ordered him to be beaten to death. If his imperial brother had not passed by and saved him, he would have been beaten to death. Hearing his understatement, Gongsun Shui pursed her lips. Who would beat someone to death just because they were disobedient? What he had experienced back then was probably not that simple. Oh right, as the leader of a clan, shouldn't you live like a prince? Why are you so skilled at bandaging wounds? Don't tell me you secretly practiced it. Gongsun Shui said self-deprecatingly. There were times before I became the sect leader. Back then, there was no daylight, and the feeling was indescribable. Hearing this, Xiao Yao's expression became serious. How could he forget that every person in power had to go through all kinds of hardships before they obtained all of it? It was not easy to be the emperor. He knew how difficult his imperial brother had been in those years, and this woman in front of him was clearly a lot of hardships. He could not help but feel pity for her. It seems that we are in the same boat, Xiao Yao joked, wanting to break the sad atmosphere. That's true. Gongsun Shui finished tying the knot and looked at him. All right, thank you for today. Rest early and recover well. With that, she stood up and prepared to leave. After spending so much effort to bring her back, how could he let her go just like that? Wait! Gongsun Shui was stopped by this hurried shout. She turned to look at him in confusion. Is there anything else? Xiao Yao called out in a moment of impulse. Seeing that she had returned to her cold self, the words that he wanted to say to make her stay were stuck in his throat. Knock knock. There was a knock on the door. Xiao Yao immediately responded. Come in. Jasper pushed the door open and came in, holding a plate in her hands. On the plate was a bowl of hot porridge. She said to Xiao Yao, Master said that you have lost so much blood and need medicine to nourish your body. He specially asked the kitchen to make ginseng medicinal porridge for you. He hopes that you can drink it while it is hot. Thanks, sister-in-law, for me. Xiao Yao smiled. Jasper nodded and placed the plate in Gongsun Shui's hands. She said respectfully, My young master said that second young master was injured because of you. He hopes that you can take care of him and finish this porridge. With that, she turned and left without waiting for Gongsun Shui's response, leaving behind a bowl of hot porridge and staring at Gongsun Shui. What the hell is this? If not for the Ice Beauty's presence, Xiao Yao would have laughed to the sky. His imperial brother really understood his feelings. As expected of his biological brother, he tried hard to suppress his laughter and smugness. With an embarrassed expression he said, Don't mind him. My imperial brother is quite protective. Gongsun Shui raised her eyebrows. He was indeed protective. She, a sect master, had to serve someone. Can you eat it yourself? With that, she saw him holding his hand with a troubled expression. I can't move it. It hurts too much. Gongsun Shui face-bombed. She really owed him. Chapter 1644. Chu Qingyan looked outside the door worriedly. Xiao Su was feeding his son. Seeing her like this, he said calmly, Are you worried? Yes, I'm a little worried. I wonder how second brother and Miss Gongsun are getting along. Chu Qingyan spread out one hand and clenched her other hand into a fist. It was obvious that she was worried. Xiao Su continued to feed his son calmly. Seeing that he did not reply, Chu Qingyan looked over. Why aren't you anxious at all? Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. What's there to be anxious about? He's the one looking for a wife, not me. He should be the one who should be anxious. Hearing this, Chu Qingyan only thought of one thing. A full man does not know the suffering of a hungry man. She chuckled at him. Is there an older brother like you? You don't even think about your younger brother's lifelong happiness? Xiao took a handkerchief from the side and wiped his son's mouth. He sneered at the little fellow's accusation. If it wasn't for him, I would have skinned him alive for what he did today. Xiao Kong swallowed the soup in his mouth and looked up at his mother. Daddy said that Ursa doesn't do things properly and wants to punish him. Indeed, his son was like his father. He had imitated his tone 70% to 80%. Chu Qingyan could not help but stroke his head lovingly. Today, her second son had brought her son into danger and witnessed the killing and bloodshed that she did not want him to come into contact with so early. When she received the news, she was very afraid that Kong Kong would be injured and traumatized. When Big Ice Cube brought him back, he was completely unharmed and could even smile and ask for hugs. Only then did she feel relieved. However, she was still worried and could not help but ask, "Are you afraid of seeing such a scary scene today?" Xiao Kong widened his eyes and looked indescribably cute and playful. He shook his head. Baby is not afraid. Ursa will protect baby, and baby knows that daddy and mommy will come, so baby is not afraid. When Chu Qingyan heard this, she burst into tears for her son's trust. Children's words were the most sincere expression of emotions. She was both gratified and moved. Little Kong saw that his mother's eyes were red, and he reached out to hug her neck. He pressed his little face against her face, and imitated the way his father coaxed his mother. He spoke gently, "Mother, don't be sad. Baby is fine. Baby will protect you in the future. Baby won't take this small matter to heart. Baby loves mother very, very much. Mother must be happy." Since he was born, he had grown up in the palace and was surrounded by hot-blooded men. Little Kong spoke with the magnanimity of a general. When he opened his mouth, he would say protect, and when he closed his mouth, he would say I don't care about small matters. However, this made him seem more sensible and lovable. She didn't know if it was because she was pregnant, but her crying rate was particularly low, or if it was because her son's words had touched her soft heart. But the tears that had accumulated in the corners of her eyes flowed down just like that. Good child. Mother also loves you very, very much. Xiao, who was holding a bowl at the side, had a dark expression on his face. This brat had made his mother cry again. The person whom he usually cared for and doted on in the palm of his hand was crying just like that. Forget it, forget it. Seeing what happened today, he wouldn't argue with this brat. Although that was what he thought, Xiao still couldn't help but walk forward and hug the mother and daughter. Don't cry. With me here, no one will dare to bully you. Who would dare to touch the people that he, Xiao, was protecting? The family of three hugged each other harmoniously. However, a discordant sound was heard. Goo goo goo. The two of them turned to look at their son. Little Kong scratched his ears and cheeks. This kind of thing that ruined his demeanor was really embarrassing. Mother, let's hug later. Baby isn't full yet. Chu Qingyan smiled through her tears and pushed the person beside her. Hurry up and feed your son. Xiao had no way to refute. He took the bowl and continued to serve his son. In the past, when they were in the palace, Little Kong did not have such benefits. In order to be able to straighten out the matters in the imperial court as soon as possible and nurture a scapegoat, nurture a successor, Xiao had always been very busy. Even if he had free time, he would spend it on his wife. He had always felt that there were too many people around his son. If he also circled around him, he would probably spoil his son to the heavens. Therefore, he had always appeared as a strict father. So much so that in front of others, Little Kong would naturally accept all the doting, such as needing someone to feed him when he ate, dress him, and so on. But as long as it was in front of his father, he would rely on himself, eat by himself, and do things by himself. In the past, Chu Qingyan would complain that he didn't love his son enough, and that he didn't like him. Later on, when she saw her son's performance in front of him, she understood that because her son was the only child by her side, there were too many people who doted on him. Therefore, someone had to play the bad guy, otherwise, the child would be lawless. Big Ice Cube didn't love less than others. It was just that he kept his love in his heart, and didn't show it on the surface. And this time it was a complete accident. Because his son had just returned from the Azura field, Xiao Su's entire heart had been broken into pieces for him. So before his wife had even picked up the spoon, he had already volunteered to take on the task of feeding her. Little Kong was very flattered. He secretly sized up his father while enjoying his father's service. In his memory, the time when his father doted on him the most was when he was still an infant. But ever since he could walk, he had never felt his father's love. Today he especially cherished it. In the past, he would still wonder if his father didn't love him. Later on, his mother told him that his father loved him very much, but the way he expressed it was different. Although he was ignorant and didn't know what his mother meant, he knew that his father doted on him a lot, and that was enough. Little Kong pointed at the bowl. "Father, I don't want to eat the green pepper." After saying that, he shrank his head. He thought that his father would scold him, but he didn't expect his father to pause and then put the green pepper on another plate. You don't have to eat it today." He knew that many children didn't like to eat green pepper. That was what his grandfather told him. But he liked to eat green pepper. He just saw that along the way, the children's fathers would try all kinds of ways to coax them to eat whatever they didn't like to eat. He felt that the atmosphere today was so good that his father might coax him, so he acted coquettishly. Who knew? He stared at the green pepper lying miserably on the plate. Why didn't his father act according to the rules? "I really want to eat green pepper," resentment. "I really want to eat green pepper," resentment. However, Little Kong didn't understand. This was also his father's way of doting on him. If it was any other time, he would definitely let him eat it, but today was different. Xiao Su thought, "This brat actually dares to be picky. But seeing that he has suffered today, if he doesn't want to eat, then so be it. I love you very much, but the way I pamper you is different from others. A man of iron is gentle." Chapter 1645. Xiao Su had finished all the things that he rarely did today. Feeding his son, bathing his son, coaxing his son to sleep. He was simply a 24 filial father. Perhaps it was because he was tired today, but although Little Kong wanted to stay with him for a while longer, he could not resist the sleepiness and gradually fell asleep. "I realized that my son really likes to stay with you." Chu Qingyan leaned against the bedpost and smiled as she watched him cover her son with a blanket. Such a gentle ice cube. If it was in the past when she did not know him, she would have thought that he was a battlefield Azura just by hearing his name. He did not know how to smile, nor was he gentle. He was cold and only knew how to fight and kill. People always liked to imagine too many things, and use the one-sided things they knew to measure others. Fortunately, the heavens gave them a chance and gave them time to interact with each other. Bit by bit, she discovered that under the hard armor, he had a soft heart. Xiao Su pulled the blanket up to his son's neck and stuffed his two little hands under the blanket. He touched his forehead, then straightened up and looked back at her with a fierce gaze. "I also realized it, so after dealing with these matters, I plan to bring him by my side and personally teach him." Until now, his son had looked at him with admiration, respect, love, and dependence. It was something that he rarely noticed. It could be seen that in the past year, his son had yearned for his company, which was why he was so careful and did not dare to say it out loud. He suddenly wondered if he was too strict with Kong, so much so that his son yearned for his company so much. He thought back to when he was young. He did not understand the matters between his father and mother, nor did he understand the complicated relationships in the imperial court. He only wanted to get his father's attention. At that time his father was cold to him, and he still remembered it. The image of a strict father that he had deliberately created might have been successful, but in his heart, he should also give his child more care. Perhaps it was time to bring him by his side. There were some things that the little fellow could not teach him, so he had to be responsible. When Chu Qingyan heard his words, she immediately raised both hands and feet in agreement. A son would only be able to learn more if he stayed by his father's side. Moreover, this big ice cube was basically an all-round genius. It was simply too good for a son to be his student. "Big Ice Cube, I'm so happy that you can think like this. Today in the carriage, I was racking my brains to think of a way to make you agree. I didn't expect you to take the initiative to bring it up." Chu Qingyan's eyes were sparkling. It was obvious that she was in a very good mood. Xiao Su tucked her in and caressed her face. Kong Kong is my son. I care about him as much as anyone else. Chu Qingyan nodded heavily. She knew it. Because it was still early, the two of them got up and left the room. They sat in the living room next door. At this time, Jasper came back to report. Master, this subordinate has already brought the porridge to second master's room. Chu Qingyan nodded, then couldn't help but gossip. Then what's the situation in second master's room? Jasper replied. When this subordinate went in, Miss Gongsun had already bandaged second master's wound. This subordinate conveyed your highness's words without missing a word. After putting down the tray, this subordinate left immediately, not daring to linger. Chu Qingyan rubbed her chin and chuckled. Not bad, not bad. You did very well. Xiao Su ordered, have the kitchen serve dinner. Jasper obeyed and left. Because of tonight's unexpected incident, the original plan to go to the snack street fell through. Everyone returned to the inn to eat. Chu Qingyan sat on a chair with one hand on the table, and the other supporting her chin. She looked curiously at the person opposite her. Xiao Su took a sip of tea. Sensing her gaze, he put down the teacup and looked up. What's wrong? Chu Qingyan looked at him with her other hand. When you came back, you said you were going to punish second brother. I didn't expect you to send porridge over in the blink of an eye. You even asked Jasper to pass on those words. I'm very surprised. Xiao Su put down his teacup and clasped his hands on his knees. He said disapprovingly, that's because I draw a clear line between public and private matters. I won't use my personal emotions on official matters. Draw a clear line between public and private matters? She was very curious about his explanation. Big Ice Cube is really too understanding of the greater good. But which one is public and which one is private? Xiao Su narrowed his eyes and chuckled. Public is naturally the matter of that rascal chasing his wife. Private is the matter of bringing Kong Kong into a dangerous place without permission. You can't mix public and private matters. Anyway, he's right in front of you. There's no need to worry about him running away. If you want to punish him, you can do it anytime. This was the first time she heard someone treat her younger brother's pursuit of a girl as official matters. Chu Qingyan expressed that more than 1 billion people were shocked. This was an implicit expression. A more down-to-earth expression would be, holy shit. Xiao Su saw his wife's round eyes and couldn't help but laugh. He reached out and rubbed her head. Don't forget, you promised Imperial Grandfather that you would help second brother find a wife. This matter is official matters in our Xiao family. I'm just helping you. Otherwise, if these two don't work out, you'll have to cry to me in the future. Chu Qingyan just remembered this. Last time, she had solemnly promised Imperial Grandfather that she would help Xiao Yao find a girlfriend. Now was the perfect opportunity. She almost missed it. Big Ice Cube was awesome. He even thought of it for her. Yes, yes, yes. Big Ice Cube, you're so nice. You thought of things that I didn't think of. I simply love you to death. She was not stingy. She straightened up and gave him a kiss of love. Xiao Su enjoyed the beauty's favor. The corners of his mouth curled up, revealing a thought-provoking smile. In fact, he didn't just want to sell this single dog for the Xiao family. Most importantly, the little fellow was already pregnant. He didn't want her to worry about other men's matters every day, even if this person was his own brother. In the future, you don't have to worry about second brother's matters. If I can help, I will try my best. You just have to focus on taking care of the baby. Chu Qingyan's eyes immediately lit up. She had really found an incomparably considerate husband. In the future, she only had to be responsible for eating, drinking and sleeping. However, since the Big Ice Cube was so awesome, she should do something. Between husband and wife, how could they always enjoy each other's efforts with a clear conscience, and enjoy the fruits of others' labor? She held his hand and said generously, Big Ice Cube, in view of your outstanding performance today, I have decided to reward you. Tell me, what do you want? As long as I can do it, I will definitely satisfy you. Xiao Su's eyes flashed, revealing a bright light. He held his little wife's hand back, interlocking their fingers, propped himself up, and whispered into her ear. There's one thing that you can definitely do. Satisfy me. She was encouraged and her eyes lit up. Speak. He chuckled and whispered into her ear. Let's try that position. The last words were really embarrassing. Chu Qingyan stared at him blankly, her face flushed red. You. Didn't my wife say just now that whatever I want, as long as you can do it, you will definitely satisfy me? Xiao Su played with her fingers and returned her words. She really wanted to eat back her words, but her face was red as she gritted her teeth and said, Yes. Xiao Su kissed her on the cheek. My wife is so righteous. Chu Qingyan wanted to cry in her heart. She had dug a hole for herself, and even if she cried, she had to fill it up. Chapter 1646. Xiao Yao sneezed and felt a chill down his spine. He had a premonition that something was waiting for him. Gongsun Shui was holding a bowl with a spoon in her hand. She didn't know what to do when she heard him sneeze. She couldn't help but ask, Did you catch a cold? No, I have a feeling that someone is talking bad about me behind my back. Xiao Yao rubbed his nose. Perhaps it was because he was injured, but his tone sounded a little aggrieved. Gongsun Shui glanced at him. You've done too many bad things. Xiao Yao expressed his innocence. He waited for a long time, but the ice beauty didn't feed him. He coughed softly. The porridge should be cold. Gongsun Shui was a little helpless. It's my first time feeding someone. Xiao Yao immediately added. It's not my first time being fed. Gongsun Shui's expression became a little strange. He felt that something was wrong and immediately explained. Don't misunderstand. I'm talking about my mother. Oh no, my mother. When I was sick in the past, she was the one who fed me food and medicine. Before she could say anything, he had already started babbling. She scooped up a spoon and stuffed it into his mouth. All right, his ears were clear. Xiao Yao almost choked when the porridge was stuffed into his mouth. However, he was afraid that if he coughed, she wouldn't feed him anymore. He resisted the itch in his throat and swallowed the porridge. Although Gongsun Shui said that she could take care of herself, it was a different story when it came to taking care of others. It was really hard to bear this beauty's kindness. It wasn't too big that he almost choked. It was just that the porridge flowed down his neck. There were all kinds of funny little episodes. Gongsun Shui was a little unnatural at first. After all, it was her first time feeding someone. As she fed, she got used to it. Eating a bowl of porridge was more tiring than fighting a battle. Seeing her put the bowl back on the plate, Xiao Yao looked at her back and felt an inexplicable excitement. How rare. The ice beauty was feeding him personally. If it was before, he wouldn't even dare to think about it. The burning gaze behind her made Gongsun Shui a little uncomfortable. However, she wasn't a shy person. She turned around and said to him, I'll leave first. Since his injuries were already bandaged and he had eaten, there was no need for her to stay here any longer. He should also rest. Miss Gongsun, she was stopped by him. Is there anything else? Xiao Yao had a lot of things to say, but he didn't know where to start. When she stood in front of him, he couldn't even ask her a single word, let alone say anything. He had been completely taken advantage of. Are you going back to the capital tomorrow? He chose a conservative question. Gongsun Shui didn't answer. We're also going to the capital. Why don't we travel together? After saying that, Xiao Yao really admired his own cleverness. Gongsun Shui's. Gongsun Shui looked at him suspiciously. Who was the one who couldn't even lift his hand to eat? Teasing. Titi, is St. Hearing her answer, Xiao Yao almost jumped 3 feet high, but she was still in front of him, so he had to be reserved. Gongsun Shui didn't say anything this time. She just turned and left. When she opened the door, the person leaning against the door had no support. He fell into the room. Gongsun Shui raised her eyebrows. She crossed her arms and looked at the person on the bed. Xiao Yao was still immersed in his self-satisfaction. He was shocked by this scene. He was instantly in heaven and then in hell. Grandfather Old Master Chu, Wuling Ethereal, Yin Luo. What are you doing? The Emperor Emeritus crawled up. He straightened his clothes and coughed. Stinky brat, aren't you injured? Can't I take a look? He turned and left. Hey, aren't you here to visit me? Why are you leaving? Father Chu stood up and patted the dust off his clothes. He smiled and said, Little fan, good luck. He turned and left. Hey, what's there to cheer for? Didn't you see that the ice beauty wasn't smiling? Hualing and Ethereal stood up and laughed. We're just passing by. You can continue. They all ran away. Hey, why are you leaning against someone's door? You don't even know how to lie. What's the use of having you? Only the two of them were left in the room. Xiao put his hand to his lips and coughed. I didn't know they were outside. Don't mind them. They don't have any bad intentions. Maybe they were just curious. Gong Sun Shui looked at Xiao whose cheeks were suspiciously red. Although she didn't know why he had such an expression, she envied him for having such a lively family. It's fine. I'm leaving. She didn't stay this time and directly left. Xiao looked up when he heard her words. She was already gone. He patted his head in annoyance and laid on the bed like a corpse. Why was he always so stupid in front of the ice beauty? He wasn't like this usually. Xiao scratched his head and weakly closed his eyes. Gong Sun Shui arrived at the courtyard arranged for today. She saw Qiu Feng talking to the waiter. After a while, Qiu Feng turned and saw her. She immediately went forward. What's the matter? Qiu Feng smiled. The waiter said that Madame Xiao asked him to come over and ask what you like to eat so that he can prepare some food for you. I have to say that the Xiao family is really meticulous. But whether it was now or when they were in the Xiao family, they treated the sect master so well. Gong Sun Shui nodded and then told her about bringing the Xiao family into the city tomorrow. Qiu Feng was silent for a while. Gong Sun Shui glanced at her. Even you think that I shouldn't get too close to them? Qiu Feng hurriedly shook her head. No, this subordinate thinks that we are really fated to meet them. She wasn't an old antique like the high priest, always giving orders and not letting the sect master do anything. She was also very wary of the Xiao family. Gong Sun Shui nodded. Indeed. From the Ri family, to Bright Jade City, and entering the capital tomorrow. If it wasn't deliberately arranged, it was really fated. Sect master, this subordinate thinks that second master Xiao cares a lot about you. I can see that he really cares about you. Qiu Feng looked at her master's expression and said carefully. She didn't notice Qiu Feng's little movements. Thinking of his performance in the cabin today, thinking of how he pretended to be weak after getting injured, a hint of a smile appeared in her eyes. He's just a rash person. She also didn't understand why she fell for his trick. She followed him to the inn, and even served him food. Maybe it was because she owed him something. After all, she lied to him. Qiu Feng looked at her leaving figure and pondered. If second master Xiao could marry the sect master, it would be pretty good. Second master Xiao was like a ball of fire, and the sect master was like a block of ice. Ice and fire could fuse together. Chapter 1647. Early the next morning, when Gong Sun Shui arrived at the hall, she found that the Chu family had already gathered there. Xiao held his injured hand and walked up to her, smiling. I've already told my eldest brother and the others. They are very happy. Chu Qingyan's voice rang out with a light laugh. Miss Gongsun, we are very happy that you brought us into the city. Thank you very much. Gong Sun Shui looked at the crowd and nodded slightly. Compared to your life-saving grace, this is nothing. It's just that. Just what? Just say it, Miss Gongsun. Chu Qingyan gestured for her to sit down. I heard from second young master Xiao that you are looking for someone. Do you have any news? I'm quite well informed in the city. If you need, I can ask someone to help you look for him. That way, you won't have to waste time searching for a needle in a haystack. Gong Sun Shui's suggestion was a timely help. As outsiders, there were restrictions on what they could do in the capital city of another country. They couldn't do whatever they wanted. That way, they would get half the results with twice the effort. But Gong Sun Shui was the leader of a clan, and the capital city was her territory. If she wanted to find someone, it would be a piece of cake. She could get twice the results with half the effort with twice the result with half the effort. Shui Ling couldn't help feeling excited as she looked towards her master. Xiao Su received his subordinate's request and nodded at Gongsun Shui. Then I'll have to trouble you, Miss Gongsun. You're welcome. It's what I should do, Gongsun Shui replied. The Xiao family, together with Gongsun Shui's group, were a formidable group that attracted a lot of attention on the road. And because of Gongsun Shui's promise, the Xiao family was in high spirits along the way. Gongsun Shui looked at Xiao Yao, who was looking at her eagerly, wanting to change his bandage. She couldn't help but feel a headache coming on. Because they had left in a hurry, they didn't prepare a carriage. But this time, they couldn't ride a horse, for fear of being recognized. Qiufeng, who had gone to buy a carriage, came back last night and said that the Xiao family had already prepared a carriage for her. So she didn't think much of it and put it to the back of her mind. It wasn't until this morning when she went out and got on the carriage that she noticed Xiao Yao following behind her. Without waiting for her to speak, Hualing helped Xiao Yao into the carriage and turned her head to say to her, "My master said that the second master still needs to change his bandages, but he can't spare anyone to help. Miss Gongsun, please take care of him." After saying this, Hualing slipped away, leaving her and Xiao Yao staring at each other. Although men and women should be kept away from each other. As the sect master, Gongsun Shui had to deal with her subordinates and subordinates. Most of them were men, so she didn't think much about it. Since he was injured because of her, she should take care of him. Thus, at this moment, she forgot that Qiufeng was still sitting beside her. She didn't ask for her help and directly helped him remove the gauze. Qiufeng, who was holding the medicine, thought that the sect master would ask her for help. Seeing this, she secretly put down the medicine bottle and sat far away. She pretended that she didn't know what she was doing and gave the two of them enough space. Because he had lost too much blood yesterday, Xiao Yao's spirit wasn't very good. So when Gongsun Shui helped him change his bandages, he didn't make a fuss and just quietly watched her. Perhaps it was because he was used to making a fuss, but it was a little strange that he was suddenly so quiet. When Gongsun Shui was applying medicine for him, she raised her head. Seeing his tired face, she thought for a moment and said, "The capital city isn't very far from Bright Jade City. We'll arrive in about a day. You can sleep first. I'll wake you up when we arrive." Xiao Yao shook his head when he heard this. "No need, I still have time to sleep tonight." Gongsun Shui let him do as he pleased and didn't try to persuade him any further. She lowered her head and wrapped the gauze around his neck again. Xiao Yao reluctantly retracted his hand. He was a little regretful that he was only injured in one place. As he watched her pack up the medicine box, the sunlight shone through the gaps in the curtains and landed on her body. Her fair and flawless face, her entire body exuded an aura of elegance. She was bathed in sunlight and gave people a very comfortable feeling. Her beautiful face was so young. Only then did he realize that she was only in her teens and already shouldered such a heavy responsibility. In the Sichuan, she was the same age as her and enjoyed a peaceful life. When she had nothing to do, she would play the zither, paint, recite poetry and write couplets. She was far away from the chaos of war and conspiracy. This comparison made his heart soften. "I heard that the Yu clan isn't very peaceful. Is it hard for you?" Gongsun Shui's hand paused. All these years, everyone only cared about whether she was in a stable position and whether she could fly high. No one had ever asked her if she was tired of flying. She lowered her eyebrows and didn't raise her head, hiding the ripple in her eyes. "I'm used to it. It's been so many years." However, this casual sentence of hers made Xiao Yao fall silent. For a person to be able to say these words so calmly without any complaint, it could be seen how difficult it had been for her all these years. The word "used to it" did not represent acceptance, but numbness. Just like many years ago, in order to hide it from the people in the palace, he drank himself to death in the restaurant again and again. No one took him back. Every time he woke up, his body would be cold. Everything in front of him was still the same as before he was drunk. He suddenly felt lonely and sad. Sometimes as he drank, he thought that his life would end like this. That endless darkness and loneliness were the most hopeless. Even if everything was better now, the sorrow left behind was deeply engraved in his bones and difficult to erase. "I understand." Emotions surged in his eyes. He looked out the window and said lightly. Hearing this, Gong Sun Shui raised her head to look at him. She only had time to catch the desolation that flashed through the corner of his eyes. Feeling his low mood, she didn't know how to comfort him for a moment. It's nothing. It's all in the past. You will be well in the future, happy and worry-free. You don't have to bear the responsibility. Sadness came and went quickly. When Xiao Yao turned his head back, there was a careless smile on his face. She thought that he was immersed in sadness. She didn't expect him to smile so brightly in the blink of an eye. Happy and worry-free? Don't have to bear the responsibility? She mocked herself in her heart. That would depend on whether she could live until then. The horses were all good horses. The journey was smooth and fast. Thus, they arrived at the city gates before the sun set. Qiu Feng got out of the carriage and handed a token to the guards. They immediately removed the fence and let them in. Xiao Yao looked at the token in Qiu Feng's hand and smiled. Lend it to me. Qiu Feng immediately put it away and said righteously, No, this represents the identity of the sect master. You can't just borrow it. Hearing this, Xiao Yao looked at Gong Sun Shui with a wronged expression. You know that I don't know how to do things. What if something happens in your territory? Send someone to find me. What if it's too late? Gong Sun Shui choked and turned to Qiu Feng. Give it to him. Qiu Feng's eyes widened in shock. This token was. Xiao Yao raised his eyebrows at Qiu Feng. Hurry up and give it to me. Qiu Feng swallowed the words in her mouth and handed it over reluctantly. Sect Master, have you realized that you have begun to indulge him? Chapter 1648. When they entered the city, there were already people waiting there. As usual, Qiu Feng went down to greet them, and the group continued to move forward. About half an hour later, the carriages stopped at a temporary imperial residence. Everyone alighted from the carriages. Gong Sun Shui had mentioned to them that they would stay in her temporary imperial residence after entering the capital. Thinking that it would be inconvenient to find a house in the city, and that there were 2 pregnant women and a good-for-nothing younger brother to worry about, Xiao Su agreed. This palace is so beautiful. Does anyone usually stay here? After entering the gates, Cheng Yanluo felt that she could barely take in everything. Although North Korea was smaller than Sichuan, they were used to luxury. No matter what, it was very luxurious. For example, this temporary imperial residence was golden everywhere. And even the ground was paved with rare agate stones. The extravagance was simply breathtaking. Qiu Feng replied with a smile. Our sect master doesn't like to stay in the imperial palace, so she usually handles official matters here. Oh right, something happened in the imperial palace recently, so the sect master will be staying in the temporary imperial residence with everyone this time. Xiao Yao was looking around the Ice Beauty's usual residence, wanting to take this opportunity to learn more about her. His sharp ears caught Qiu Feng's words, and he immediately asked the person beside him, You're not going back to the imperial palace? Gong Sun Shui nodded without thinking much. The last time the token was stolen, it was obvious that many people had been planted in the palace. She had to take this opportunity to remove all the spies, so she wouldn't be returning for the time being since the imperial palace was in turmoil. When Xiao Yao heard her words, he couldn't stop smiling. Ever since she entered the capital, her mind was filled with thoughts. When she saw his expression from the corner of her eye, she couldn't help but feel puzzled. What was wrong with this guy? He always gave her the feeling that he was heartless. As soon as Gong Sun Shui entered the main hall, someone rushed over to report the matter. She nodded apologetically to everyone, and left after asking Qiu Feng to entertain everyone. Xiao Yao reluctantly watched the white figure leave, wondering when he would be able to see her again. The Emperor Emeritus raised his hand and patted his head. Have some backbone. Why do you look like a woman who has fallen from grace? Show the Xiao family's imposing manner. Xiao Yao rubbed his head and complained in pain. We're not fighting a war. What's the use of imposing manner? Hearing this, the Emperor Emeritus hit him again. Disappointing brat. Great-grandfather, don't beat Heir Su anymore. At this moment, Nkong spoke up to save the situation. Xiao Yao was touched. He had not doted on this child for nothing. Su is already stupid enough. If he continues to fight, he'll be even more stupid. Little and Kong added. Everyone burst into laughter, and the fatigue of the journey was swept away. The retired emperor stroked his beard. Kong is right. We have to take care of your retarded Su. Xiao chuckled. After dinner, everyone went to their own rooms to rest. After Gong Suanxue left, she didn't show up until night fell. Xiao anxiously looked around, but he still didn't see her. He lay on his bed and sighed. Could it be that he had really become the abandoned woman that his imperial grandfather spoke of? He, the carefree king, had everything he wanted, yet he was reduced to such a state. Sigh, the road to subduing the ice beauty is a long one. At night, a figure appeared in Xiao Yao's room. If it was any other day, Xiao Yao would definitely be able to sense that someone had entered. However, he had lost too much blood last night. Today, he had forced himself to stay awake and chat with the ice beauty all the way. At this moment, he no longer had any strength and fell into a deep sleep. The person who had come was holding medicine and gauze. She sat down and lifted his hand to take a look. As expected, he hadn't changed his dressing. She shook her head, removed the gauze and changed his dressing. There were no candles in the room, but the night in North Korea was very bright. The moonlight shone in through the window, enough for one to see the other person's face clearly. After changing his dressing, she didn't leave immediately. Instead, she leaned against the bedpost and narrowed her eyes. She hadn't slept well for several days. She had left the capital for 2 or 3 days, and the work on her desk had piled up like a mountain. Once she returned, she buried herself in work and didn't have a sense of time. When she looked up, she realized that it was already midnight. If it was any other day, she would drink a cup of strong tea to wake herself up and continue. However, for some reason, she stood up and couldn't help but come to him. At this moment, looking at his handsome face, she felt a rare sense of peace in her heart. Because he was sleeping with his eyes closed, she realized that his eyelashes were so long that they were comparable to a girl's eyelashes. It was also because he was sleeping peacefully that she realized that his sleeping appearance was somewhat childish, pure, and harmless. It was completely different from his usual playful or angry appearance. She knew that she didn't have much time, and should use it to deal with state affairs. However, today he had asked her, "Will it be hard for you?" This sentence moved her, and also made her want to escape from this suffocating official business for the first time to take a breath. Not all efforts would yield results. However, if you didn't do it, you definitely wouldn't gain anything. Therefore, day after day, year after year, she worked hard to do things that she didn't like to do. She was right. She wasn't happy. She had power in her hands, but she didn't have freedom. She was afraid that no one would believe her if she told others. She didn't know why she thought of him when she wanted to catch her breath, and then came to find him. Perhaps it was because by his side, she could feel that she was alive, breathing, and had warmth. The peaceful environment and familiar aura made her relax. Her tight temples and sore eyes made her close her eyes involuntarily. Sleepiness attacked her. She told herself that she would be fine after resting for a while. She used this place to lean on him. The moonlight shone on the 2 young figures, one lying down and one sitting. The shadows on the ground were leaning against each other. After an unknown period of time, Gong Suanxue opened her eyes. Her head was much lighter. Seeing that the person on the bed was still sleeping, her eyes curved. She raised her hand and tucked him in. Then, she got up and left without any reluctance. She didn't have any more time to waste. She gently pushed open the door and closed it again. Qiu Feng stood outside the door. She followed Gong Suanxue here. After Gong Suanxue went in, she had been waiting outside to prevent anyone from disturbing her. Seeing that the sect master came out after only an hour, Qiu Feng's eyes were filled with surprise. She couldn't help but look at her. Gong Suanxue noticed her restless gaze and knocked her head. She laughed and said, "What are you thinking about? Let's go. There are still many things to take care of." Qiu Feng covered her head and stuck out her tongue. She thought that the sect master would only come out at dawn. The sect master had kept herself clean for so many years. Many people wanted to shove male pets to her, but she rejected them all. This was the first time she saw the sect master care so much about a man. Xiao was good-looking, had good martial arts, was knowledgeable, and knew how to make the sect master happy. It would be good if he was taken in by the sect master. She started to think about how the sect master and Xiao's little sect master would look like. He would definitely be very cute. With that thought, Qiufeng happily followed the sect master in front of her. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.